Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
10 minutes left. Yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name. That's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story. Let's take this thing off of the field into the real world, away from the numbers, away from the numbers.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of There's Still Time, the AFTN Soccer Show. I'm Michael McCall.
I'm Zachary Adam Eisenheimer.
And I'm Felipe Vallejo.
Yes, we have a new lamb to the slaughter on the show. Welcome, everybody. The new writer for AFTN. You might have seen his stuff on Last Word on Sports as well. You'll definitely have heard his voice if you've watched the Whitecaps press conferences. We've been delighted to add Felipe to the AFTN team, making his podcast debut as well in this episode, which is our CPL season preview special. But before we get into any of that, Felipe, there's going to be some folk that don't maybe know you or don't know much about you. Tell people about yourself. Just introduce yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, okay. So I am a writer, a sports writer for Last Word on Sports, covering the Canadian men's and women's national team, as well as the Vancouver Whitecaps. And I've been doing this for a little while now, not too long. But it's been a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying every moment of it, of getting to meet some really cool people, having a lot of really cool opportunities like this. And yeah, I just love talking and writing and watching soccer and seeing how Canadian soccer is growing. Makes it easier for me to find new ways to fall in love with the game again.
Yeah, your stuff's been great. If anyone hasn't seen Felipe's stuff, definitely check it out. We've just got an article that went up on Wednesday afternoon talking about the CPL kits, which we're going to talk about in this episode of the show. So we're delighted to have Felipe on board. He's one of the new voices that I spoke about a few weeks back that we're going to kind of have coming in and out of the show. So it certainly will not be the last time you hear about Felipe. Felipe's also going to do some stuff covering Vancouver FC for us this CPL season. And we thought we'd get Felipe on the show because we're going to talk Canadian Premier League in this episode. And we've got a lot to talk about. But we're going to look ahead to the 2023 CPL season that gets underway on Saturday. We're going to bring you some of the interviews. We're going to preview all the teams. But we'll start things off in this part by looking at the two BC teams, because we've got a new British Columbia team in the league, and we're very excited about that. Vancouver FC, we've been covering them since their launch last April, I think it was now, April or May anyway. The Canadian Premier League season going into its fifth season, and there's some changes this year, and we'll look at those before we get into our team previews. So this year is very exciting because in 2024 the CONCACAF Champions League is being revamped. So this year, the 2023 CPL regular season winner and the 2023 CPL playoff champion will both earn berths in that newly expanded Champions League. And that is such an exciting thing, Felipe.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what you need to see in a new league. You want to have as many opportunities to face top opposition, and in this geographical region, there's no better place than the CONCACAF Champions League, and we've seen a little bit of it with Forge going there last year, I believe.
Yeah,
And
Cruz Azul faced them in before they had a chance really to be settled for the season. But I mean, that was the first CPL team to play in that, and what a momentous occasion that was for them and for the league.
yeah, and that's sort of what I think we want to see in a domestic league like the CPL. We want to see teams like Cruz Azul and Atlas and maybe even Tigres come to Canada and face some Canadian Premier League teams, because that kind of gives us a better idea of where this league stands against other leagues in CONCACAF. And with such a new league, it's only 5 years old. It's nice to have early tests to kind of see where the bar is and where we, as a league, can improve.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Zach. It kind of puts the league on the map. It raises awareness of it, and when you do that, and if the performances are good, it helps attract with players and recruitment and everything like that. To have one team in would have been fantastic, but to have two teams in, it, aside from anything else, it makes the regular season so worthwhile as well, which is something we've talked about for years with MLS. You want that regular season to mean something. And now with this spot, even if the team doesn't go on and lift the trophy at the end of the year, they've got something for their achievements over the season.
Yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction to see how this is getting handled in terms of the added spot and the added prize money for the winner of the league. One of the things that has been great about the CPL is with a clean slate, they've been able to try some things, and so they're semi-malleable enough to be willing to make changes. So I think this is a good change to continue to elevate the significance of coming first in league play. So yeah, really encouraging. And like you guys said, it's the more you can play against other teams in the region, I think the better it is. Obviously, there's a taste of that with the three MLS sides in the Voyageurs Cup, but this is a different level and a different opportunities to play teams from different countries and different styles. And yeah, really, really exciting. Obviously, the Canadian MLS sides have enjoyed that to varying degrees, both sporting wise and I think just cultural wise, having played these teams or traveled to play for some of the away games or whatever. Yeah, it's exciting. It's a great step for the league. We criticize them when they don't do things well. For example, for whether it's playoff format or with the Voyageurs Cup, which I know not the CPL in and of itself, but yeah, it's good to see this step being taken.
Yeah, I don't know how much I've enjoyed the last 2 weeks Champions League action from a Whitecaps point of view, but we won't get into that in this show. It was wonderful doing the post-game radio show on Tuesday because I had to watch the whole game. I may have turned off when it had gone to 2-0 otherwise, but let's not talk Whitecaps in this show. We'll save that for another time. But I mean, you mentioned the playoff format there, and that is one of the changes this year for the 2023 season. The CPL, they're using something that, if anyone's watched curling and the way that plays out, the page playoff system. So there's 5 teams going to make the playoffs this year. I'm not a huge fan of that when there's only 8 teams in the league, but it is what it is.
But it was better than 4 of 7 or 4 of 8. Just the format, it adds something.
Yeah.
More unique to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the format's interesting. So, for anyone that is unaware, the team who finishes first in the regular season table will play the team who finishes second. The winner of that game hosts the final. The 4th and the 5th place teams play in a play-in round. The winner of that game will play the 3rd place team in a quarter-final. The quarter-final winner will then play the loser of the game between the 1st and the 2nd place teams for the other spot in the final, which might sound a little bit convoluted, Philippe,
Yeah.
but it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see a bit of a second chance for one of the top teams because, you work so hard to get into those top 2 positions, and to face the other strongest team and then get knocked out early would be a bit unfair. But to see them have a second chance and to be able to maybe win that semifinal and then go back into the final and get that revenge I think can create some cool storylines between teams, and especially there are, every season there's a rivalries building up because of league positions and stuff like that. So I think it could definitely add some drama. But yeah, there's definitely mixed reception in between a lot of fans with the new playoff format. So I'm excited to see how it actually plays out in this season.
I mean, much like MLS, with 9 of 14 in the West, if you're one of those teams that misses out, you're like, oh, you have to have been pretty bad to miss out in one of those spots. Now, with 5 out of 8 teams going in this, if you're one of the 3 teams that miss out, you know you've had a bad season. But I do like that fact, Zach, that you can be the second place or the first place team, and if you lose your first game, it's not over. Now, as someone that's commentated and covered youth sports for a number of years, it's one thing I've hated about the youth sports system. The 8 teams go to the championship game, they play their quarterfinals, the 4 winners move to the semis, and then the 4 losers just battle out for places 5 to 8. So one bad game or a bad call in a game costs them their chance to lift a trophy that they fought so hard for over the season. This year, I was commentating on the CCAA Nationals, and I loved the system that they had, where you had your 4 quarterfinals, but then if you were a losing quarterfinalist, you got another chance to play a game, and you could win that game to get to a semi against one of the losing semi-finalists, and then you still had a chance to get to a medal game. And the team that actually won the bronze medal had lost their first game, which under a normal system would have meant that would have been their hopes of winning a medal over. So I do like the fact that if you've worked hard and you've been first or second and you lose that game, you've still got a chance. So, I mean, are you excited for this, Zach?
Yeah, very much so. This you talk about university. This reminds me of when I played college and the league was small too. It was 8 teams or less, and you always had like a double elimination kind of playoff format at the end of the season, or even within some of the tournaments or whatever. So in one sense, for me, it feels like a little bit like smaller league, but I actually like it, and I think it's definitely better than I think all the previous years probably in total. Although the first year there was no playoff format, right? Or it was like
No, there was. It was the spring and fall season.
spring and fall, right? Yeah.
So
So
it's kind of
they didn't want to have they wanted to be more traditional, not have a playoff. So they did the Apertura Clausura winners playing each other, right?
You're asking me to think back to 2019. I have enough trouble thinking back to last week, never mind back then. But yeah, I mean, you're never going to please everyone with the playoff formats. That's the thing. So, I mean, it's always going to have mixed reaction. The last kind of bit of stuff to talk about changes-wise is player compensation budget has increased this year by 175,000 from last year. And teams have to spend now between 750,000 and just over a million, basically, on their rosters. It's a minimum of 30,000 per player, which isn't a lot.
But that's like almost double with some
Yeah,
players.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, it will help attract. It might hopefully stop some of these players that's retired early because there's no way to make money. I've spoke to some local guys that's got a lot of talent, and they're like, why would I want to go and play to make that money when I'm making double that in my job? So
Yeah.
why would I want to give up a career just to go and play soccer? I can go and play soccer for fun in the VMSL at the weekend. And there was one very good local player that certainly, I mean, he dabbled with the pro game, and he certainly could have gone on and had a pro career, but he's branched off, got his own business ventures stuff now, and it's just not worth him looking at that. So, I mean, hopefully it's still not a lot, and it's not going to let you live in a big city like Toronto or Vancouver, but I mean, that's good. And a team that makes use of the full under-21 salary rule can technically reach a compensation maximum of 1.125 million, so a little bit more. So, I mean, that's all good, and hopefully, Felipe, it maybe keeps some of this young talent from packing the game in early, because we've seen too much of that in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think the initiative put forward definitely helps with that because the CPL is seen to be not necessarily a developmental league for other teams, but just a developmental league for Canadian talent. That's sort of why it was put in the first place. And so to do that, you have to make sure that you provide incentive beyond just, it's wonderful to be able to be a pro soccer player and to play in front of fans and kind of live that life, but that, you need to get paid. You need to be, you need to see yourself with financially a long-term plan. And so, yeah, this definitely, I think, helps keep those young players to stay in here and then continue to grow and hopefully go out and become stars in themselves and maybe go to Europe or go to Mexico or somewhere else and really put their stamp on Canadian talent. So yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction. You can't expect too much from a league that's only 5 years old. And hopefully, in the future we can see even more and even more. So not only it's just young players, having that incentive to stay, but maybe even attracting some other players, maybe some national team players, even not necessarily ones that are close to retirement, but maybe some ones that are still somewhat in their prime.
That's the thing, Zach. The eyes of the world on Canadian soccer just now, and you're seeing that, like in Scotland, a number of players have gone to play over in Scotland this year. So in some ways, it's like you're kind of betting on yourself that let's give it a year or two, see if we get noticed, see if we get that big deal. But then you've got other people, like there's a player that I know that's got a good job with the city of Vancouver. And his dad said, because he still would love to be a pro footballer. And his dad basically said to him, if you give that job up, I'm going to kick you out the house. So that it's kind of balancing all that kind of stuff as well.
Everyone's like, I want to know who that is, Mike.
I'll tell you after.
Well, no, I'm not saying me. I'm saying the listener. Yeah, no, it is. I think the league continues, I think, to progress and to move forward, and I think this salary increase, even though it's or salary budget or whatever increase, and minimum standards of, even though they seem small, there are steps in the right direction. I'm sure there's a few more than one or two people who are yelling at their phone or whatever about the money that CSB is making off that setup and all that. But again, you can't talk about that without talking about how much they're actually losing on the whole. And they are as I understand it and as I believe it to be true, the money that the owners are making through the CSB deal with the CSA does not outweigh the money that they're losing on operating their clubs.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
if anyone thinks they're getting rich from the Canadian Premier League, it's not happening right now. Yeah. Maybe in 5-10 years it might, but it's certainly not right now.
But it's great to see this all growing and all progressing, and obviously in the Lower Mainland, it's great to finally have a club that's a part of this league and a part of the overall landscape in the Lower Mainland. And it's incredibly exciting times.
So the season gets underway this weekend. We're all looking forward to it. Before we start to look at the teams and do our preview, let's just have a moment of solace and reflection for FC Edmonton. Dearly departed. They've gone to a better place, Zach. I don't know where that place is, but it's not Clark Stadium anyway, so that's a bonus for them. But I don't know if you saw, very excitingly, Clark Stadium has a new tenant.
Who's that? Lacrosse?
BTB Soccer Academy, who I am very high on. I love BTB. They are doing fantastic stuff out in Edmonton. They're going to be one of the new Alberta League One sides. Oh. And they're playing their exhibition games for this season before hopefully the proper season starts. So they've taken Clark as their home. And do not be surprised if they draw more than FC Edmonton.
Oh, yeah, that's not hard. You set the bar. You're setting the bar really low there, Michael.
Yes, true. But as one team moves on, a new team comes in, and it's our local guys. Well, it's Zach's local guys. I still like. I can't move on. I'm sorry, Zach. I can't move on from Stu the Starfish. He's my boy, my homie, and not da homie, but he's got a special place in my heart. I bought, actually, I don't know if I told you this, before I went to Scotland last year, I bought a Pacific FC hat with a lighthouse on it that doesn't really fit my head. But I got, you remember they did that TIFO, the Welcome to the Pacific with the big octopus and stuff?
Yeah.
And they brought out a limited edition t-shirt, so I bought that.
Nice.
So I'm still cheering on Pacific more than Vancouver. I'm sorry.
Really? That's interesting, Michael.
You can't change your football team, Zach. they were my first. You always remember your first.
Well, Michael, when you have a new local football club, I think you could make sense to support them.
Well, that was something I was going to talk to you about. So we're talking about Vancouver FC now. I don't think I need to clarify that, but we're going to talk for the rest of this part about Vancouver FC and Pacific FC, the two BC boys in the league. I was thinking about this as I was putting the show together, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's just me, and it'll be interesting to get Felipe's thoughts on this as well. It's more of a kind of neutral, since he is I haven't told you this either, Zach. Felipe's a Forge FC fan.
Oh, Felipe.
It's good though. We've got balance now on the show as opposed to us criticising Forge left, right, and centre.
Where are you from, Felipe?
I'm from originally Oakville, Ontario, so they were my local club.
Oh,
and
well,
actually,
I was wanting you to say I'm from Colombia, and we're like, see.
Oh, true. Yes, I am from Colombia, but no, they I most of the time that I've been living in Canada, it was in Oakville, and I actually worked for Forge for 4 years from 2019 when they started until this past summer. So you're friends with my buddy James Hutton? I don't recall that name.
Barton Street Battalion.
James Hutton.
Oh yeah, no,
but he works for the club. He's like,
he's in ticketing actually. Yes,
yeah, he's in ticketing. Yeah.
No, I was mostly dealing because I worked in stadium
he's bald
operations.
and has a beard.
Okay.
Basically, anyone in Canadian soccer is bald and has a beard. You will soon lose your hair.
Bobby?
Yeah.
Yes. So
no, that's okay.
Did you get championship rings?
Huh?
Did you get any championship rings?
No. I will.
See, if you were at LAFC, you'd have got your championship ring.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. I was
the wrong club.
I was born in Sudbury and I grew up in North York and Thornhill. So I try to get my family to go. I try to get my sister to go to watch York United, but that's been fairly unsuccessful.
Yeah, here's Zach's secret, Felipe. He's a TFC fan. He has jerseys and everything.
Oh dear.
Yes.
I'm not a TFC fan.
You were.
I do have some TFC stuff though.
I know. I've seen your closet.
Serjan Jukanovic. That's the best thing I own from them. I
try and forget him. Was he playing for them without us knowing in that game?
He was playing. Yeah, the 6-1. Yeah. But no, Oakville is
Oakville actually do some really good stuff. Sorry, I've taken us completely off tangent. Let's get back to Vancouver FC. So yeah, I'll say this to Zach, but then I want to get Felipe's thoughts on this because I was thinking about this as I was putting the show together, and I don't know if it's just me or if it's because I do have this little affinity with Pacific, but I don't know what it is about Vancouver FC, but they haven't really grabbed me. They haven't grabbed my imagination, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's that they didn't bring in local players that I knew and was hoping would maybe get deals or bring back guys to BC. I know they're trying to appeal to the whole lower mainland, and maybe it'll come. Maybe once the season starts, I'm going to think, yeah, I think this is my team now. But I don't know. They haven't grabbed me. They have clearly grabbed you, Zach. So talk us how you feel about the club and how you are looking forward to heading into this inaugural match over in Langford on Saturday.
Well, I mean, I've been, been in the process with them for a long time about the supporter elements and culture and stuff, right? It's been since like 2017. So it's been a long journey. For me, obviously, it's about having a local football club that I can believe in and, run by people I can trust. That's the bottom line. because I don't think that exists at the highest level in the area, for me personally. So yeah, I've been in conversations with them from May 2017, and for me, it's not a I love them simply because I live here or whatever. It's similar to 2003, Michael, for me actually. When I went to Europe and I came home and I was just like, I want football culture in Canada to be more meaningful, and I can hope that it happens, or I can get involved and try and play a role in making it happen. And so with this, it's the same thing. There's a new football club in the place I've lived actually the most of my life in Langley, even though I don't live there now. But I've never lived anywhere longer than I lived in Langley. And so yeah, I could sit back and just hope that things go well and things come together, or I could play a role. And so I've chosen to try and play a role and use some of my experience and trying to bring people together, bring community together. It's been really, really interesting over these last almost 6 years, where just building relationship with people from across the supporter spectrum of the Lower Mainland. People who obviously some I've worked with a lot in the past, and some people who I've worked less with. But it's been really great to kind of just have a new thing to rally around and to connect over. And so I'm excited, and the closer it comes, the more and more I get excited about various elements of what's going to happen and stuff. Because for me, just the bottom line is, what is the support like in the stadium during the 90 minutes? Like, that's like the priority. And so trying to make that meaningful and quality is what I've been working with people to achieve. And so first crack at it is this Saturday away. There'll be a band of people coming together to try and lift our players to victory in their first ever match. So I'm excited.
I was thinking about this. I was talking to my wife about it. I feel I've been very critical of them. I've criticised the stadium. I didn't like it. Criticised the kits, and we'll do that again in the last part. I didn't like them. The squad build, I didn't like it. So apart from that, the name, I was one of the ones that actually liked the name, and I know a lot of folk haven't. Now, we were going to speak to Rob Friend on the show, but what I've thought is we'll wait until before the home opener. He's got a couple of games under his belt, and then we'll just talk to get everything G'd up and speak to Rob and speak to Afshin just ahead of that game. So we'll certainly do that. Felipe, as kind of the new boy in town, do you feel that the team has kind of captured your imagination? Are you excited for what this team's going to be in for this season?
I think it's hard to not be somewhat excited just because it is a new team. It's a completely new team with a new identity, with new players, some players that we've seen before, but still the team itself is novel. And I think that even if you are not a fan necessarily of them, you're tuning into that game being like, okay, what are they going to bring? So I think in that regard, I am quite excited. From the team itself, I've been to two of their games now, two of their preseason games. I was at the Rovers one a couple weeks back, and then I was at the Altitude one, which was last Sunday. And
you're at the Valour one as well.
I was. Oh, you're right. Yeah, I was at the Valour one as well. So I've been actually at three. Look at that. And the Valour one, I think that was the first real test, so I don't think I can judge too much. But I think against Altitude and Rovers, I don't know if this is exactly what Afshin wants to do, but it feels like they're more of a patient kind of play. The way that they kind of build up is very patient, pass it around. They like dominate possession. It's not super fast, electric, or super attacking. It's very measured, which, I guess with someone of the affinity of Afshin, he's been around the world. Clearly, he wants to have a very balanced team and doesn't want to maybe blitz too early with a team that doesn't have too much chemistry. But I think so far, I like some of the things that they are doing. I like how they're getting a bit fluid. switching from a back three to a back four. It means that they're not going to be one-dimensional. It's going to allow them to switch their plan depending on which opponent they're facing or what situation. So I like that some players are adapting to different roles. That seems exciting, but in itself, I mean, they drew 1-1 against Altitude, and Altitude in the second half looked the better team.
Yeah.
And
I've watched the penalty back the Vancouver FC got, and I think it was probably the right call, but they have relied on a couple of penalties. They had to get a penalty against FC Tigers to beat them 1-0. So, I mean, they're not giving up a lot of goals. They gave up 2 to Valour. They gave up 2 to Timbers 2 in a friendly down in Portland. Defensively, they look very good. They look very solid. That back three of Pelly Martinez, Rocco Romeo, and Beccari.
Yeah.
That
solid.
It's so exciting. The three of them, they are big boys. You do not want to be a small forward going up against them because they'll just like ragdoll you out there. And we saw it in the Altitude game, obviously way different quality, but Atos De Sequeira, the guy that was playing up front for Altitude, he just couldn't get near the ball because any ball that came up there with their height, they were just winning everything. And I think that's going to be their strength. With that back three and with Callum Irving behind them, defensively, I think they're going to be tremendous. They've got some attacking pieces, but it's whether, like Sandoval, I'm curious to get both your thoughts. And obviously pre-season's very different. He didn't play on Saturday because it was horrendous conditions. I would not have risked him in those conditions, I've got to say. But the little glimpses that I've seen from him, he hasn't, to me, screamed, oh, this is the guy that's going to light this league up. But obviously it's pre-season and he's still getting chemistry, and he might be a guy that just rises to the big game player. But is it a case for this team that offensively, if he goes, the team's going to go?
Yeah, I was going to say about the Altitude game it's hard to judge them offensively without him there because he is I don't know what internal expectations they have on him, but externally, yeah, I think it is essentially what you said, Michael. As he goes, so will go the offense. Think about like maybe Bustos in the past especially when he was on Pacific or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is both,
even like Diaz last year with Pacific, because as soon as he did go, so did Pacific's chances.
Exactly. So I think there is an element of that. I think that so, and I agree with you that his preseason has been okay. It hasn't been like amazing. Hasn't been horrible, but it'll be interesting to see how he adapts and how he deals with the amount of pressure and marking that he'll receive. I think in this league.
Yeah, he is going to get a lot of attention. Like if you're an opposition manager, you're saying go out there early, get a little kick in him, let him know that he's here.
But in terms of the other pieces, you're right. They do have some other interesting offensive pieces, and it'll be interesting to see how they, what kind of impact they make in this league. You talk about them, having the three at the back, which, they might play three at the back. They might play four at the back, like you said, depending on the opponent. Yeah,
they seem to have experimented half each in the games that I've seen. That they've gone 3 in the first half and then 4 in the second. So they've got some exciting options to do that. And Caden Chung obviously is a very talented right back.
That's what I was going to say. Is we talk about the offense for them. Like, Caden Chung I think is going to be significant in that, whether it's creating chances or even taking chances on his own. I think there is, significant expectation on him and what he can do and maybe should do and maybe hopefully will do this season for the football club. And then you have you have a bunch of guys where you're just like, okay, what can they do? Whether it's Shan Hundal or Gabe Bitar.
See, both of them, I've really liked what I've seen, and Felipe would have seen them on Saturday. Bitar's kind of playing, like when I first saw Bitar, he was playing for Carleton. I was commentating on the 2017 U Sports Nationals up at UBC, and he stood out as a player of quality. and then he got drafted, and then hasn't quite hit the heights in CPL as an out-and-out striker, which is where I first saw him. But he's been playing as a 10, and him and Hundle are linking up really nicely. They've got that little chemistry and understanding. Felipe on Saturday, Bitar just seemed to have a kind of free role almost out there, just to he might not get that in the CPL to the same extent, obviously way higher quality opposition, but he seems to thrive just moving about and looking to try and get the pass to Hundle, or Roby was the other guy who, I don't know if he's actually officially been announced as signed yet, but I believe he is another signing, the 23rd and final one on the roster. But Bitar and Hundle, I think from what we've seen, do link up well.
Yeah, I think Bitar is thriving a bit more in a deeper role, in a more like you said, like a freer role, coming in from the wing, tucking inside, trying to connect the play a bit more. He is one of the more creative players that I've seen so far on Vancouver FC, and I think that AFTN sees that, and I think he might get the best out of Gabby Bitar by putting him back, either maybe as a winger or as a 10, kind of trying to be more of the creative outlets and provide service for Sean Hundal and any other of the forwards. And I think he might finally light up this CPL, as a lot of people were slating him to do earlier in his career.
You look at the roster, Zach, and there's a lot of names in there that people won't know.
Yeah.
We don't know them. But there's been guys that have shown flash. I mean, there's guys like Elliot Simmons that we do know. We know the quality he is. And I think he's a key piece for that middle of the park.
Well, he's an interesting piece because when he came in, I thought, oh, okay, here's the left back. Right? Played a lot of left back at Cavs, right?
Yeah.
And now
he's playing as a 6.
Yeah, he's like
6'8".
Yeah. So that to me has been one of the most interesting things. Like from the early signings, I was just like, oh, okay, we have left back. And then it was like, no, he's not going to be left back at all. He's going to be like our holding midfielder. And I think he's done really well there. Obviously, it's preseason, and then they've only played limited, CPL opposition. But I've been really, really encouraged by him and by his contributions and being able to hold things together in the middle, and hope that will continue into the season. But yeah, there are a few, kind of known people. There are definitely a few unknown people. I'm excited. On the left side, with the Simmons not playing there, I'm excited about both Crawford and Kwok and what they could contribute, either at left back or left wing back. I liked
what I saw from Kwok on Saturday against Altitude. He was involved in everything, it felt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then on the right side, obviously you're going to have Caden Chung, but maybe further forward or pushing out wide. I forget his last name, but Nicky. I've been enjoying Nicky in preseason.
Gima.
Yeah. The name I murdered every time I tried to pronounce it on Saturday.
He's been whether he's I can't remember if he started the one game, but when he's come on in the games, he's brought a great spark and pace and some creativity, and obviously backlines have had to be aware of him being able to play off their shoulder and get past them. And so, yeah, there's, and I think he's also like I think Bakari, from 6th division England or something. Like they're from some interesting places.
Well, they've done some interesting recruitment, because they've also recruited like Big Pele Martinez playing down in NCAA, but Division 2 of NCAA, the same as SAFU.
And he's a Belize international too, right?
Yes, he is. And again, I saw him at the open trials, and right away he stood out, not just because of his size, but also because of his quality.
Yeah.
And I definitely am excited to see what this team can do and what they can be. And in Afshin Goatby, they've got the most experienced coach in CPL. It's a huge addition. And with what he's done, he's been at World Cups, he's been in MLS, he's been around the world, he's won championships. In Japan, I think he won a championship there, and he's won in Iran, he's coached in China. That experience, And I spoke about this on previous podcasts. When I've been at training, and he's very hands-on, and he really gets involved in it. And I've spoken to some of the players, and they love the training. Some of them that's been with other teams in the CPL have said this is like some of the best training that we've had in our time in the league.
I think I can guess who at least one of the few players you're talking about. It is interesting though, because when you watch him, I can't remember. I don't think it was after training. I think it was after one of the games. You watch him just like walking back to the locker room, and he's got his arm around one of the young players, and he's just talking to them about, hey, like it sounds. I mean, I didn't hear it, verbatim, but it looks like here's some things that went well in the game. Here's some things you can work on, but like very much like a loving, caring. Like I think the players understand the reciprocal nature of he longs to get the best out of them for obviously the results.
Yeah.
But he also longs to help them grow and develop and become better footballers. And so I think that's going to be a significant thing for Vancouver FC this season, is this whole, and this might sound, wishy-washy and like whatever, the stats people will be like, oh, shut up or whatever. But no, like, I really think that the level of togetherness that if this group of players can come around this coach and can be in it together, I think they can maybe make that top five, even though they're odds-on favorite to be in the bottom, 2 or 3 or whatever.
Yeah, like there's no FC Edmonton in the league this year for me, and I don't mean that as in obviously they're not in the league, but it's like there's no team that you look at and you're like, yeah, they're dead certs that they're going to be bottom. There's some that you think they're dead certs are going to be near the top, and we'll come to them. But yeah, I mean that from what we've seen from Vancouver FC, Philippe, they look like they can be a competitive team. It's how it all comes together and how it plays out over a super long season. And I mean, we saw, for anyone that doesn't know, Altitude filmed the game. I did commentary for it. It was up on YouTube. There's some technical issues. It'll be back up on YouTube soon. But we sat and we took in the game as I was doing commentary, and we were sitting right beside Afshin on Saturday. And like hearing him talk through the game was fascinating, what he's wanting the team to do. So he wants them constantly to be pressing, high pressure, quick movement, do. And can you keep that going for a full season is going to be the big question, because we know it's a long, grueling season with a lot of travel, and for a number of these guys, they haven't experienced that before. But everything that we hear from him, everything that we see from him, it makes it an exciting proposition.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so interested in this team, because of Afshin. Mm-hmm. I think he is probably one of the most important signings, and we've seen that nowadays managers can be as important a signing as a star player. Mm-hmm. I mean, to throw a little
and they
bit
can also get
MLS,
bums on seats, because you saw how mobbed he was by the Persian community in North Van on Saturday.
Exactly, and it was hard to even just try to go and have a word with him.
Yeah,
and I think one of the things that makes him so fascinating is what he was before he managed, because when he was with the South Korean team under Gus Hiddink, he was an analyst, and that's what he did for half of his sporting career, was as an analyst. And so I think that grants him a special kind of perspective of the game, where he doesn't see it, I guess, like as a necessarily all the time as a flowing game, but like as certain situations, certain scenarios that allows him to be able to understand what players need to do where, and be able to communicate that better than somebody who maybe just, that was a player and then became a coach. I think that kind of unique perspective allows him to be more intricate in the way that he wants his team to play. And I think that's why we're seeing more fluidity from the team, going from a back three, going to a back four, because that's sort of the way that the modern game is being played. If you look at teams in Europe and some of the mega teams, they don't really have all that many set formations. And even if they start in a set formation, they are so fluid. They change. They go from 3 at the back, 4 at the back, 5 at the back, 2 at the back. And I think Afshin kind of brings that kind of European brain even though he isn't really from
Yeah.
Europe, he's from all over the world, but still kind of like that higher tactical understanding and bringing it to the CPL and bringing it to a team. Obviously, he commands the team because of his status, but it's his wisdom with the game that I think will be one of the greatest assets for Vancouver. And the fact that he is so outspoken with the players and he's willing to put his arm around young players and he's willing to promote that unity will mean that the team can buy into his ideas.
Well, I mean, you even saw on
crucial.
Saturday a friendly against the League One side when they scored that penalty. Big celebration, the whole bench joined in and everything, and it's like that's that kind of like connection that you need. But it's interesting that you say that, because like, one of my criticisms of Vanny is he's slow to react and change when change is needed in games. And I was worried about Afshin because obviously he's an older manager, and you think, oh, has he adopted modern philosophies, or is he a little bit stuck in his ways? Which, if I was a manager, I would probably be old-fashioned and stuck in my... So to quote the famous Mike Bassett, who is a brilliant film and TV series from the UK, there's only one way to play football: 4-4-2. But Afshin's not like that. He is very fluid. So yeah, we'll see how it all goes. The first game is on Saturday, obviously, against Pacific. Now, for folk listening, we're not going to delve into every team as much as we just have there with Vancouver FC, but obviously it's our special local team, so that's why we're doing that. Despite what I said about preferring Pacific, they are our local team, and I do wish them well, and I want them to succeed, and I will be at pretty much all the games that I can, if it not commentating on League One stuff. My big criticism and disappointment was there isn't more local players on the team, and a lot of it's out with their control. They just... Players like Davy Norman, Ben McKendry, guys that I would have hoped to have seen come back, they command big salaries, and it's hard to fit things in.
I think we talked about this before, Michael, on the show. It's to me, it's a little bit reminiscent of TFC in 2007 in MLS, where they know the players and their agents know that they knew at the time that TFC had to have whatever it was, like 8 Canadians or whatever, and so they could command more money. And my guess would be that that's a little bit what's happened with some of the local players is they know the club would love to have more Callum Irvings, more local players, so they figure they can ask for more money or get more money or whatever. And I'm guessing at least one of the players, that's probably why they're not here or they're not here yet.
Well, I mean, look at David Norman. He's gone over to play in England, so he's going to be getting a hell of a lot more money than he was going to have got by coming to the CPL. But I mean, that's a disappointment to me. We've got Caden Chung, got a couple of local lads as well that came out of the trials.
Yeah,
and of
Callum
course,
Irving.
Yeah, the big local guy is Callum Irving. We've spoken a lot about Callum in the show. We've both known Callum for over 10 years now. Yeah. And it's great to see him back playing his football in Vancouver. It's great to see what he's going to do on the pitch as well as off the pitch. So I got a chance to chat with Callie after the altitude game on Saturday. Here's what he said about looking forward to the season and what he's expecting from Vancouver FC this year. So, Callum, pre-season's wrapped up now. Maybe you didn't finish with a win, but it's been a pretty good pre-season, especially defensively for you guys.
Yeah, I think coach has preached it from pretty much before the team even got together that he wanted to have a focus on the back four and the overall team defensive shape. And so, you know, if you're not conceding a lot of goals, you always have a chance to win. And I think attacking is always something that's going to take a bit of time to kind of gel and figure out how you're going to score goals. But yeah, we've had good moments throughout preseason, some defensive, some offensive, and yeah, a lot that we can learn from and a lot that we can build on.
That back three, it looks beasts. It's like Rocco and Bakari and Pele. It's like that is going to be a handful for attackers in the CPL this year.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are physical. They battle. And we got good athleticism out wide as well. And so, yeah, I think, you know, when you're a goalkeeper, you want guys in front of you that you know are going to be able to do the job. And so, you know, that's something we work on daily in training, and we're hoping to start the season well.
So looking into the start of the season, What are you expecting going back to Pacific? We kind of touched on this a little bit when you first came here, but what are you expecting the reaction's going to be? Is it going to be weird stepping out of the visitors' locker room?
I don't think it'll be weird for me. I think that's just a part of football, you know. I had a great time there, but ultimately, you know, my time ended, and I'm fully focused here on Vancouver and super happy to be playing in my hometown. And so I'm looking forward to it. Again, so many friends and close people that I know there. I'm expecting the reception to be hostile. We're a derby, you know, it's a rival team. We're coming over from Vancouver. I don't think the fans are going to be, you know, shaking our hands and giving us smiles. So I'm not expecting that either. But hopefully it's just a hard-fought 90 minutes, and then afterwards I can say hello to a few people.
How do you think the team's shaping up for this season? You touched on it already there at the start. It's like offensively you've got a few good pieces in there, and Shan Hindle's been doing well, and Gabby Bitar. You've got a good mix of experience from guys that's been in the league and guys that's kind of new to the league. So what have you made of the squad, and what are you expecting from the squad this year?
Expecting a lot. I'm expecting a baseline level of, you know, putting in the effort every single week, and I think that sets you up for a chance to take 3 points any weekend in this league. You have to be mentally focused and ready when it comes to playing in the CPL. So I think if we can do that week in, week out, we'll give ourselves a really good chance of competing. And then I think with these guys, the sky's the limit. There's, you know, we're pretty young, we're pretty inexperienced as a total group, but I think with that comes a lot of potential to learn, to grow. And so I think, you know, week upon week, if guys can build on the experiences that they have, I think the sky's the limit for this team, and I'm excited to see what we can achieve.
Just last thing, what have you made of the reception from the Langley area and just to the team? And not even just that, you've come out to games in Richmond, you've here in North Vancouver today, so you've taken the team out. You're a BC guy. Do you fully believe this team can be BC's team?
Yeah, I really genuinely get the feeling from the time that we spent throughout the Lower Mainland in preseason that people are really connecting with us as a club, and we're trying to connect with them. I think it means a lot that, you know, like you said, we've come out to the North Shore, we've played in Richmond, we played in Surrey, we play in Langley. You know, we're kind of touching base throughout the Lower Mainland, trying to plant some seeds and some roots in places and show that we want to be a part of the soccer community, not just in one place but everywhere. And so far the reception's been great. There's been great crowds at every single preseason game that we've had, whether it's at Willoughby or wherever. There's tons of people coming out, tons of people supporting. People want to get to know the club, want to get to know the team, telling us they're excited for May 7th. So, yeah, I definitely feel like we're really immersing ourselves within the community, and I think the people of the community appreciate that. And for me, like you said, as a BC kid, it's fun. I love coming out, playing at Burdett here. We played in Newton. We've played at Minaroo. Like, these are all places I grew up playing my youth soccer. So it's really fun for me to come and play in these places where I have such good memories.
Good luck next week. Hope everything goes well on Saturday and going forward. And I'll let you go get a hot shower now.
Yeah, great.
That's great. Cheers,
good
man.
to see you, Mike. Yeah.
So Callum Irving there, just talking all things Vancouver FC. Can't wait to see him in action against his former club at the weekend. And he knows he's going to get an interesting reception. And, I mean, we won't dwell on this again, but we'll just say again, what Callum can be to this club off the pitch and promoting it is just as big as to what he can be on the pitch, because he's a great asset. It was a great first signing. And, yeah, just so glad to see him back here. Always wish he'd signed with the Whitecaps, but he's in a better place now, Zach, isn't he?
That he is, Michael. Definitely. No, you're right. Well, I agree with you, the off the pitch stuff, but he also, like, where things are right now, where the rosters are right now, he's going to need to be huge on the pitch. I mean, the backline is there's encouraging signs there, but like with any team, imagine if one or two of those center backs gets injured.
Well, yeah,
right? They're in a bad place, and even if they are all fully fit, Callum's still going to need to play a massive role. And it'll be interesting to see at the end of the year. Maybe we'll keep track of this or whatever, Michael. But like, we talk often about how there are moments where you can say, yeah, a keeper, you know, earned his club that point or those points or whatever. And it'll be interesting to see, to reflect on this year.
Yeah.
How many times you think, or how many points you think, Callum Irving in and of himself either earned or maybe also lost, from time to time. But yeah, I'm excited that he's here. He's a tremendous gentleman. And yeah, like you said, we've known him for so long. It's nice to have, both him and Caden. Obviously, I know him better than Caden, but it's just nice to have them be a part of this. And with Callum, you just have this sense that he is so excited to be a part of laying the foundation for this new club, which is what you want.
Yeah. So the first game of the season, the first ever game for Vancouver FC, takes place at Starlight Stadium on Saturday afternoon, 4:00 kickoff. The BC Derby, the first ever BC Derby in the CPL. Pacific FC hosting Vancouver FC. I want to give a big shout out for Vancouver FC as well. They've put on a bus for season ticket holders that's free for the season ticket holders. They just have to get their ticket for the game, and it's going to be leaving from Langley. It's sold out very quickly. Yeah. Leaving from Langley, going to the ferry, then going to the game and then back again. So well done to the club for putting that on and recognising that they need to get their fans there. It's a special occasion. It's going to be an amazing atmosphere. I still don't know if I'm going to be over for it or not, but Zach certainly will. So we'll get the feedback from him on the next show as to what it was like.
I don't know if you read the announcement, the email, Michael, but it sounded also like this was not just for this and then the other already known Pacific away match, but it sounds like they've partnered with, which is partly why I think this took so long, is it sounds like they've partnered with this shuttle company.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, I think it says. I think it says in there somewhere about them being their bus partner, their shuttle partner, but it might be for more than just away games. I think it might have some home game element to it as well. But don't quote me on that, because
I want to go to Halifax by bus. Is this what you tell me? No, can we do this?
No, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Halifax by bus.
No, home games, Michael. Home games.
I know, shuttle buses and stuff, and hopefully park and ride and stuff like that. So let's quickly turn our attention to Pacific FC. My boys, Stu the Starfish. Love the guy. That is still my dream, to be a mascot for the day. It would probably be my one and only day doing it. I do think my actions to the fans would probably get me banned. I should share more videos of mascots doing bad things. I love it. But Pacific FC won, of course, the CPL in 2021. Last year, 13 wins, 7 draws, 8 defeats. They finished 4th in the regular season table as they defended their title, losing 3-1 on aggregate to Ottawa in the two-legged semi-final. Their excursions in the CONCACAF League possibly played a little bit of a part in that, but maybe not as much as Alejandro Diaz going to Norway. As I mentioned, as he went, so did their hopes, it seemed, because he was never replaced. You're losing a 13-goal guy. It left a big hole that they couldn't fill last season. I think they have filled it for this season.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, is it just too simplistic to say that that's what undid their chances? Because they were still in the mix, but then they lost some home games that you would think, how did they lose that?
Wasn't the big Dutchman Daniels sort of supposed to be their replacement? Because he came in mid-year, just before Diaz left, wasn't it? Or was it just, I can't remember, just after. And he contributed a little bit, but obviously not as much as Diaz did. And then obviously
he wasn't banging the goals in the way that Diaz was.
No, but he did score a little bit and did contribute a little bit. But you're right; they've definitely course corrected that in the off season and brought in, like, can we use the term prolific, like a prolific CPL scorer? Is that?
I think we can, and it's Easton Ongaro that we're talking about. He was with Whitecaps 2 for the tail end of the MLS Next Pro season last year. We had him on the show. You can go back and check out that interview. And he spoke that he'd come to Vancouver because he wanted that MLS deal. It didn't come for him in this off-season. Whitecaps wanted him to at least start the year in MLS Next Pro. We talked about this in the last show. He felt, nope, I think I've shown what I can do. If I don't get the deal, I'm going to move on. He's gone to Pacific. He's going to be the regular starter there. And he's been doing very well for Pacific in their pre-season games. And it's it's going to be interesting to see what he can do, because he was scoring goals for the Whitecaps in MLS Next Pro, which is arguably, you could say, above CPL. But for a guy that scored all those goals on what were very poor FC Edmonton sides, it gets you excited and kind of whets your appetite for what he can do with a better supporting cast around him. And I think we'll see what the real Easton Ongaro is. Because I've been critical of Easton in the past, that he maybe didn't get as many goals as I think he could have got. But now, with maybe having better sort of players around him and better chances created for him, I think we might see him now move to an even bigger level.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very true that he is. I disagree with you that MLS Next Pro is at the same level, especially because it is it's a reserve league, and so to me, a reserve league is never going to be the same, even just on the match day and the atmosphere and what's going on around.
Well, yeah, I think it's also a lot
pressure.
of younger players in MLS Next Pro as well than you get in CPL. I know it's a young league in CPL, but it's even younger in MLS Next Pro. Yeah,
so I think I agree with you though. I hope that he does perform, and he does perform well, and he does get to kick on again. He sort of had the Dos St. Ricketts experience in Eastern Europe, right, where you don't really get paid. Is that partly what his issue was?
Yeah.
So hopefully he gets to go somewhere where he can, in Europe, he can put a year or two in the Pacific, continue to do really well, and then go over to Europe and have a more positive experience. I think that would be hopefully best for him, for his development. Maybe he's not at the Canadian men's national team level, but maybe he could get to a place where he is like a further, down the depth chart kind of option, for some of the games or Gold Cups where you don't want to put everything on David or Laren or whatever. Maybe he can be like a fourth, fifth, sixth choice for Canada, but someone who gets games and gets playing time if he gets to, a more consistent level. But the one thing I think about him though is he is one of those big men. He's huge, but he's good with his feet. Like he's much better with his feet than you might expect.
Arguably better with his feet than he is in the air.
Yeah, even that. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm pretty sure the Whitecaps will be also keeping an eye on him as well. So I mean, he's the interesting one. If you look at some of the players that's moved out, Felipe, some big names. Obviously, Callum Irving. We've talked about him. Jordan Haynes has gone to Valour. Jamar Dixon's retired. Marco Bustos, a big loss. Gianni Dos Santos, Jordan Brown. So I mean, there's some big pieces moved on and some big holes to fill. You look at who they've brought in, and you won't get this joke, but Zach will laugh. The Slamo's son Pierre. No, he didn't laugh.
So I muted myself.
Oh, see, I'm not looking at the Zoom. I'm looking at a screen.
I messaged him right away about that.
Because our good friend Slamo's called Stephen Lamotte. So
yeah, but his son is playing in Spain.
Yes, but not for Pacific.
No,
he's in a better place.
Or not even for Pacifica.
No, but there's Paul Amadume that's come back from loan and was with Pamaduka last year at North Texas. And the interesting one that I think so many folk are wondering, Felipe, what are we going to see from him? Kakuta Mane, back in BC. Has his star waned, or is this a chance to show I've still got it?
I think both are true. I think his star definitely has waned. I think we saw the last thing we saw him do well on was when he was with the Whitecaps. And after that, his career's kind of gone downhill. And I think this is a unique opportunity for him to show that, his experience will match still with his ability, and that he can still, fly down the wing and threaten their opposition. To have a player of that quality with so many MLS appearances as he does, the most out of any player in the CPL, I think you're going to want to show that means something. and that you can, I don't know if people should expect him to necessarily like light up the league and be the player of the year at the end, though he might well be, but at least, help Pacific get back on top as they did 2 years ago and fill that hole that is now left from Diaz with goals, or even maybe assists. I think even more importantly, replace Marco Bustos with all those assists that he did. So I think he's going to be a very interesting signing overall, and I'm excited to see Kikutamane back in BC.
Michael, I think this is actually one thing you said there, Felipe. I think, and I might be proven dead wrong on this, I think you actually need to do something that Martin Rennie only did a couple times with Kikutamane, and you need to play him through the middle. You need to play him up front with Ongaro or just behind Ongaro, and give him not the freedom of a 10 to create, but give him a little bit of freedom. I don't think he quite has the pace. Obviously he did, 8 years ago or whatever it was. But I think he can do a lot of damage from that inside spot, both creatively, as you said, Felipe, but I think also just, getting past defenders and getting into one-on-one positions with the keeper, which he can be lethal from in this league. And so, I think if they put him on the wing, like if they're bringing him to really replace Dos Santos or whatever and play him out wide only, I don't know if that's gonna be the best for him.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with that. When you said do what they didn't do much here, I thought you were going to say set his alarm clock, but that's a whole other story.
Sorry, I muted again. Are you going to tell that story? Do we ever tell that story?
I don't know if we did, but basically he was dropped for a game because he slept in.
Away to LA, wasn't it away to LA? Or
it was an away game.
California. It was California.
Yeah, but he just completely slept through his alarm clock, and so he was dropped. So it was good punishment. I mean, I wish Scooter all the best. We've always had a lot of time for him. He's always been a lot of fun to have on the show. We will catch up with him at some point soon, because he's slower now. I can probably catch up with him, I think. But it's going to be an interesting one to see how he does in this league now. And I hope he lights it up for Pacific's benefit, for his benefit. It's an exciting Pacific team. We'll get an idea for both the BC sides in this game on Saturday. What's your predictions? Which some folk are going to be listening to this after this game, so we might have stupid results. So I'll kick things off. I think Pacific's going to be too strong for Vancouver FC, and it's going to be 3-1 to Pacific.
Yeah, I'm going to be very interested to see how the battle between Ongaro and the Bakare or a Pele, just the battle of the big men up front.
Well, because at least that's a big v big.
Exactly.
We haven't really seen them tested with some big guys.
It's going to be Clash of the Titans there.
Oh, yeah.
But I sort of agree with you. And Pacific has experience. Pacific has, it is a changing squad. And for example, like, I don't really know, like, who's going to be in goal for that game. If it's going to be the young German guy, Gazdov.
I think it will be. I think he's expected to be their starter by the looks of it.
Yeah, by the way they announced the signing today, or the official signing today.
Yeah, it looked like it was a starter, and he's 19. He's a young guy, probably has quite a commanding voice. You kind of have to be as a goalkeeper. But just like that, it's like I don't really know Pacific what this new look side is going to be, but I still think they'll have a bit of an edge. So I'm going to go 2-1 Pacific against Vancouver.
Now, Zach, it's head v heart time.
Yeah, totally. So I'm giving you 2, like I often do, Michael. My heart says it's going to be like 3-1, 3-2 for
Pacific.
For VFC. But I was actually my head was saying, it's going to be like 2-0 to Pacific. But I think actually I don't really rate Gazdov and maybe whatever. So I think Vancouver's going to score at least 1. So I was going to say 2-1, but yeah, you guys already took 2-1 and 3-1. So maybe I'll say it's going to be 3-2 for one team or the other. My head says Pacific. My heart says VFC.
I mean, that'd be a great opening game for the season as well. Good for the folk watching as well, and get some excitement going for both teams. Now, I know that was a long-ass part. The rest of them won't be as long, but we've got a lot more to chat about, and we'll be back with some more CPL chat after this.
Hi, I'm Tommy Wilden Jr., and you are listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
No use in lecturing them or in threatening them. They will just say, who are you? Is that a question or not? And you see that the plot is predictable, not new, but just as stunned at the things you will do. No use in taking their time or in wasting 2 times on a call to God knows who. When all you feel is the rain and it's hard to be vain when no person looks at you. So just be gracious and wait in the queue. So when do I get to sing my way? When do I get to feel like Sinatra? When do I get to sing my way in heaven or hell? So when do I get to do it my way? When do I get to feel like Sid Vicious stuff? When do I get to sing my way in heaven or hell?
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show. And kicking off this part is our Artist of the Month here at AFTN for the month of April, American band Sparks. That's a song from 1994, from their 16th studio album, which I love the title of, Gratuitous Sax and Senseless Violins. And that was a song, When Do I Get to Sing My Way? It's a top 40 hit in the UK twice, and it reached number 9 in the US dance charts. And I'm sure there's a lot of managers around the CPL wanting to do it their way and to basically dislodge Forge and lift the title and get their name written in the history books as winning the CPL in their historic 5th season. Now, we delved a lot into the two BC teams in the first part. We're not going to go into the rest of the teams in as much sort of depth, but we'll touch on some of the key additions, some of the ones that's not. And we're going to do it going from west to east. And that means kicking off now with Cavalry FC. Now, Cavalry, a team that 4 years down in the CPL, it's kind of hard to believe that they haven't actually won any silverware. And I think Tommy Wilden Jr. would agree that it's hard to believe that they haven't won any silverware because they've had such strong regular seasons. Last year, they ended up finishing 3rd in the regular season standings on goal difference behind Forge, and that was crucial because of the way that the two-legged semi-finals played out. They had 14 wins, the same as Forge, 5 draws and 9 defeats, the same as Forge. They scored 39 goals, the second highest scorers in the league. They gave up 33 though, and that's kind of where things kind of hit their goal difference really a little bit. And they stuttered at times over the course of the season. Controversial semi-finals, as you expect, against Forge. And, I mean, we talked a little bit about it, and we'll just quickly touch on this. Are either of you surprised that Tommy's back for year 5? Did you think there was going to be a change, or is Tommy basically there for as long as Tommy wants to be there?
Hi, Tommy. He still listens, right, Michael?
He might do.
I don't
Love
think
you, Tommy.
I don't think it. I'm not surprised. I could see reasons for a change being made, but I'm not surprised for all that he's done for their club. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and this might, you talk about no trophies or whatever, but if season 1 had been like this year, they would have had a trophy, right?
Yes,
exactly.
And they would have been in Champions League.
Exactly.
Actually, a couple of times, probably.
Yeah, they have been one of the second most consistent side, I think, in the 4 years of the league. At least in without looking at looking at the stats, that's what it feels like, right? Like they've been kind of there the whole time, almost neck and neck with Forge, up until at least the finals. And so, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see, they've lost some players, they brought in some players, but when you look at their roster, you look at their players. I think, Michael, like obviously Tommy and his coaching style and his, what he's gotten out, what he hasn't got out of them, whatever. When you look at the players, though, they have some of the most name recognizable players and significant contributors.
Oh yeah, like quality. Like
yeah,
Marco Carducci, arguably the best keeper in the league. I know Callum might have something to say about that, and
everyone
maybe Henry as well. But
yeah, everyone would talk about Henry, although Felipe, you must admit he has his dodgy moments.
Yeah.
He has a few moments where you're questioning what was running through his head.
Yeah, I think you could also put that with some of Tommy's tactics though as well. Not just it's like I think this is a quality team, and you look at some of the guys, as Zach said, Felipe, and like Meyer Bevan, quality player. Ali Musi, we know what he can do. Joe Mason, we know that he can score. You've got Callum, you've got the new Callum that's added to the team. I don't know why I said Callum. We've got Marco is what I meant, but we've got a Callum that's added to the team in Callum Montgomery, who had spent time down in MLS circles without really making an impact, but was highly rated, taken in the draft. Dan Klomp is one of my favourite defenders in the league. I just think he's fantastic. You look at the team though, 12 players have moved on, and they've only added 7 at the time of me putting this together. They might have added a couple more since. And I do wonder whether they've made enough changes to replace the key guys that they've lost. I mean, it would be a huge surprise if they didn't make the playoffs. Are they still a top 3 team, though? That's, I guess, what we'll have to wait and see. They've certainly got the attacking chops. It's just, is the depth there to see them still do stuff, Felipe?
Yeah, I don't know. You see teams like Atletico Ottawa starting to come into the upper echelon of the CPL. Pacific, obviously, are still there. And, I've been watching this league since the beginning and working for Forge. And as a Forge fan, always the team that was like the rival beyond York United.
Well, yeah, this should be
Cavalry.
The team you hate.
Yeah, we, as fans, we always, I think, relished more the games against Cavalry than the games against York United because they were always more chippy. They were always more aggressive. I mean, I think that's what you get a bit out of Tommy's teams. Tommy's teams are very physical.
Yeah, and I love it. That's why I love Tommy so much.
Yeah, he's an old-fashioned manager, and his team plays old-fashioned football, 4-4-2 classic. And I think
4-4 fucking 2. I wonder how many parts I can mention that in.
Probably a few more.
Yeah, I'm going to just call this episode that. That will get us banned everywhere. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. Get used to this when you're on the podcast. I just go off in weird tangents.
No worries. But yeah, I think now we're starting to see a little bit of a decline with Cavalry, and what's kind of boggling for me is that a lot of the star players are still there from a few years ago, and Tommy is still there. So it kind of feels like you mentioned, it's like, are you surprised he's still here? Yes and no. No, obviously, because of who he is and what he's done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does feel like Cavalry's starting to stagnate a bit as a club and the way that they are playing. And I think even with such a young league, it's starting to evolve a bit more, and you're starting to see teams like Atletico and Pacific kind of come into their own, and Cavalry feels like they're still trying to play the same way they were playing in 2019 and 2020, and I think that might be holding them back a bit, because you're right. You look at some of the players that they have, and they're quality players. They're players that should be, performing to the highest level in the CPL, But I think as a team, maybe it's the philosophy or the style of play. Sure, it's entertaining to see a team play so aggressively and, with as much grit as they do. But at the end of the day, you want to see a team win.
Yeah.
And that's what I think Cavalry are lacking a bit, is having that, I guess, fluidity I mentioned before with Afshin to change a bit so that they can win. Because if a team figures them out, then they really don't have that much of a plan B. And, you look at the additions, 3 out of the 4 main center backs that were in rotation have left, right? David Norman Jr., Krifa Yao now is with the Whitecaps,
Yeah.
and Mason Trafford. And they only brought in Callum Montgomery, who I think is going to be a really good center back for them.
Yeah, I think in this league he's really going to shine.
Yeah, so I think they brought in a quality center back, but like you mentioned, depth. It's a long season. If you get 1 or 2 injuries,
which they
how
had
are
a
they going
lot
to
of last year,
exactly?
and that's
So
surely going to be in the back of their mind again.
So if they have a year like last year, how are they going to adapt? How are they going to change? Because I don't see, Tommy as a manager who likes to fiddle with his tried and trusted tactics and with his tried and trusted formation and stuff like that. So it will be. I'm interested to see how they do, but I do feel like it's if the change not going to happen now, it might have to happen soon, or else Cavalry's going to slowly start to slink to the back of the pack.
I mean, we've known Tommy since 2017 when it was the TSS foothills and USL and all the battles, and I've so much time for Tommy. I love talking football with him, but that is a very good point you've made. Has the league maybe advanced and moved on to different levels, and maybe his style of management, his style of tactics haven't? Now, that's not to say he's not going to come out and surprise everyone this year by having worked on new stuff and try something different. Because if the tried and tested thing hasn't worked in 4 years, you've got to try something different. You can't think, well, if I try this again, it's going to work. And of all the coaches in the league, I'd love nothing more than for Tommy to get some reward for what he's done and to get his team into the Champions League next year, because I know what that would mean to him, and I know he's still bitter about how that first year played out, that they got nothing for being so dominant and then lose the final. But that's the rules. That's whether we think it's right or not, how things should have been decided, that's what it was. From Cavalry's point of view, they've got a strong fan base. I love Spruce Meadows. I hope I get another trip there at some point. I really enjoyed my trip there back in 2019 for the Whitecaps game. It's a passionate fan base, but sooner or later you've got to start getting the success to keep that fan base. And you saw it last year. Attendances did dwindle a little bit, but they were like that across the league. I hope he's got some more additions coming, because I'm very concerned about their depth right now. And I don't think they have replaced the quality that's left with the same quality as of right now. And I'm sure Tommy's got a few things up his sleeve. He certainly looks to have some roster spaces there anyway. And there's always a chance of getting loan deals in it or whatever as well. But yeah, but we'll see how that goes. Valour FC next, and in the next part we're going to hear from head coach Phil Dos Santos. I had a good chat with Phil this week just about all things Valour, and of course looking ahead to that big Canadian Championship game that they've got with TSS next week that I am so looking forward to. Valour, the last 2 years, they finished 5th. 2 seasons ago they missed the playoffs by an agonising 1 point, but last year, further adrift, they finished 9 points behind Pacific in 5th. 10 wins, 7 draws, 11 losses. They were scoring well, 36 goals. It put them up there as joint 3rd with teams in the league, same amount as Atletico that won the regular season standings on 36. What let them down was really 2 things. 34 goals against, and in their season running, I think the last 10 or 11 games, they never scored more than 1 goal. And that's what kind of really undid them down the stretch. They lost 4 of the last 5 games of the season as well. And they've made some interesting decisions. But before we get into like how the new season's looking, Phil Dos Santos, it's his second full season in charge. And he's lost... Moses Dyer got 9 goals last year, so he's lost him. He's moved on from the team. The guy that led the team in assists, Sean Rea, he's moved on. Brett Levi's a key player for Valour. He's gone to the USL. So some key losses. I mean, we spoke as well about Rocco Romeo of Vancouver FC, so he obviously moved on. Jonathan Sirwa has gone back to Montreal and is now getting MLS minutes with them. There's been a big turnover on the roster, but unlike Cavalry, where it feels they've lost some key players, but they maybe haven't quite replaced that quality, Valour's been very busy, and they've brought a lot of people in, Philippe. What are you making of their kind of off-season moves?
I think that they have had probably one of the most interesting off-season because of the number of players that they've brought in, and also because of where they're bringing them in from.
Yes.
A lot of internationals, and I mean a lot of internationals. People from Australia, I think Nyangabire, I think his name is, came from Australia. Keon Williams came from Iceland. You got players coming in from Portugal, Belgium, Ireland. It's just a lot of internationals coming in. And I think that's always a gamble because you need to see how they adapt to the league, adapt to the country, and stuff like that. So I think Valour are going to try to swing big this season with the signings that they've made, especially since inconsistency is what cost them the most last season. And bringing in new players that can bring that energy, bring that excitement will hopefully mean that they can be a bit more consistent. But on the other side, if you have players that don't really know how to play together, don't really understand maybe the football culture here, then you could have a very tumultuous season, another very up and down season. And I think that would hurt them a lot because they've made a lot of progress. I mean, when they were at their best last season, when I was working for Forge, they beat Forge every time they went there, and they played them out of the park.
But that was the thing with them last year, though. They beat every team at least once that finished in the top 4, and it was the teams that finished below them that they seemed to struggle with. Like Edmonton took several points off them last year, and that cost them big time. So they showed they can compete with the big boys, but for whatever reason, they didn't maybe rise to the occasion against the lesser teams. And you see that often in football.
Yeah, and especially when I guess it's one of those things where it comes down to maybe your tactics, where when you face a team that knows that they're sort of the lesser team, they tend to sit back more, they tend to go into a low block, and they're harder to break down. And I think maybe Valour were relying on being the team that counterattacks more and attacks with pace rather than the team that's dictating the play. And so, against Forge loves to hold on to possession and play through the wings and overload aside and just attack. And so Valour, when I was watching the games, they were hold on to their defense and then attack at pace and counterattack and score their goals. And against, I think, Edmonton and stuff like that, they didn't have that creative spark to be able to, unlock a low block. And maybe one of these players that they've brought in from all parts of the world can have
they're unknown quantities right now, which
exactly
can work in their favour, especially early in the season, because other teams won't know them. I mean, they've brought in players from 8 different countries, or like playing in leagues in 8 different countries. And I don't want to spoil too much from my chat with Phil that we'll hear in the next part. But one of the questions I said to him is it easier to bring in those guys than Canadians because Canadians don't want to come and live and play in Winnipeg. And basically he said, yeah, that does play into it.
Yeah, they're one of the clubs in the league that's a significant disadvantage based on the geography or location they're in, right? Like I think virtually every other club has some kind of communal, geographical, cultural draw, whereas Winnipeg is less so. And I don't say that to be mean to
No,
Winnipeg,
it's like we're not
whatever.
being disrespectful by that,
No.
but I mean it's just it's.
But when you
facts,
compare
it's honesty.
to the other 7 options, yeah, it's this sometimes happens to the MLS clubs, the Canadian MLS clubs too, where they're a significant disadvantage for different reasons, whether it's just a desire to be in America or the dollars or whatever. Like this happens in other leagues as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I feel really bad for them, especially because, like you, Michael, I have a strong appreciation for Phil Dos Santos, and I really, really hope that he does well. I think what you guys are saying is right too. As I looked at the players on their team, I was like, wait, who is this? Where are they from? Like, where did they get this player? I think Surwa, not having Surwa is going to be significant. But I think I don't know if you kind of both said this or maybe it was just you, Michael, but they have an opportunity with so many different players to come out quickly and maybe catch teams unaware as to just who they are and what kind of players they have. And so I could see them doing well at the beginning, but as teams kind of figure them out or as teams have more tape on them and all that kind of stuff, it being more challenging for them in the middle and the latter part of the season.
Yeah. Well, we saw in 2021 what a great start they got off.
Exactly.
Sirwa was like on fire and not letting any goals in, and then the wheels came off.
Yeah.
And it led to the coaching change, and Rob Gale moved on. And although Phil came in and did a good job, the points were lost at the vital part of the season.
The one thing is too, when I think about Winnipeg in the CPL, or when I think of Valour in the CPL, have they been the team that's been the most effective with loan deals?
Possibly. And again, I don't want to spoil what we talk about with Phil too much, but I did mention to the fact that he doesn't have any loan deals this year as of yet. And in part, it's just a new philosophy because he's thinking for 2 years. So he's giving people 2-year deals. And he doesn't want to keep having people come in and move on. But also, MLS teams now, because they've got MLS Next Pro, they're not as willing to kind of loan the players the way that they were.
Yeah,
and Montreal obviously don't have that MLS Next Pro team, but I don't know what's the hell's going on in Montreal at the moment, just in general.
That's actually like on a obviously for the Canadian teams especially, but on a bigger scale, that might be the bigger impact of MLS Next Pro, as opposed to just losing out on a player here, a player there. Is that an MLS team is less likely to loan you a player.
But Axel did say when we asked him about that last year that each player is unique, and for some of them they might benefit more by being in the CPL if they're going to be, say, a regular starter every week. And we saw that they gave Cam Habibullah to Pacific, and that didn't work out the way that they wanted because he wasn't a regular starter there. So, I mean, that is going to play into it, I think, more and more down the line. But, I mean, they've brought in experienced CPL guys, Haynes and Samaki from Pacific, Marcello Polisi from Halifax, where I think he might thrive better in Valour because he's going to be playing more in his natural number 6 position. And then Anthony Novak from Cavalry, that I thought, that's a good pickup. And then I looked and I was like, he hasn't scored as many goals as I thought he had. He hasn't scored many goals at all. But the player a lot of the Valour fans from reading the message boards are most excited about is an unknown. He's a Burundi international. I have seen him play in the A-League because of my love for staying up till 2 a.m. watching free YouTube streams. But he played for Perth Glory, and that's Pacifique Neon Gabourey. And he has apparently looked very good in pre-season. And he's one of those unknown quantities that folk just, these early games, no one's going to know who he is or what he can do. So I think it's interesting. And if Valour do as they do the last 2 years, they're going to be in the playoffs for the first time ever. And I think it would be good for them as a club to make the playoffs. But also, again, I'm kind of spoiling what Phil's going to say in the next part. They want a home playoff game, no matter what. They want to reward the fans. And I think just in general, the fan bases in this league, at this stage, teams that haven't made the playoffs have to get into the playoffs. And I think there's not many of them now that haven't. I think it is just Valour and Vancouver FC, actually, now that I think about it, that haven't made the playoffs. Because
It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard for Vancouver.
Playoffs.
Kind of hard for Vancouver FC to have made the playoffs.
Oh, making your excuses already, Zach.
No, they do have some great people there. Red River Rising, my friend Nikki,
Yeah,
has been a part of things there. Yeah, and I do. They do have one of the most unfortunate also like setups for ownership. As much as community owned is a great thing. I think when you're community owned by a community pigskin team,
it has its other issues. Yeah,
it's limiting.
Yeah. So next up, Forge FC. So they're good. Let's move on. After that, no. So Forge, obviously champs, 3 CPL championships in 4 years. They're a dynasty. They're a storied club. They're fantastic. They were second in the regular season, but they won the final 2-0. That's all that matters at the end of the day. They were the joint highest wins with 14 last year, 47 points, the best goal difference, plus 22, the highest scorers with 47 goals, the best defence with just giving up 25. Rubens Passius led the way for them with 13 goals. But then you've got David Chaner, Tern Campbell, Tristan Borges, 7 goals each. They started the year in the CCL with Cruz Azul. You had a slow start, and then you can imagine if they were just the way that they played from the last 3 quarters of the year onwards, if they'd started like that, they would have been out of sight in the regular season as well. 6 players moved on. 2 that had been on loan with the Eddies, so I guess maybe you could say 4 players have moved on. Their biggest loss, arguably Daniel Crutzen, who's didn't make it with the Whitecaps, sadly. I was really hoping he would. And amazingly, just 1 new addition. Manj Ricard James, Canadian international. Philippe, they're your team. Tell us how they're going to win another title. 4 out of 5.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people might be surprised that they've only gotten 1 addition, but Forge have never been really a team to go and buy a bunch of players. I think Bobby very much has his squad set. He likes his players. He likes playing them in their roles, and he only wants to bring in 1 or 2 and not upset the balance by having, a big turnaround. And I think that's one of the biggest things that has allowed Forge to be so good. And, bringing in a quality of player of Mandrakar James, like it's the same thing as when they brought in David Edgar, except, Mandrakar James is younger, so he's going to be around for a little bit more, but he's still a quality center back. And I think Bobby also has the ability to say goodbye to players when he thinks that their time is done. So like Chris Nanko was really good at the beginning for Forge. Then he had a couple injuries, and then he's kind of waned, and he's like, okay, well, then we move on. Same with Jonathan Grant. He was one of the best right backs at the beginning of the Forge dynasty, and now they've gone through a different route. Kwame Awa also, he wanted a new challenge last season, and they let him go, and they still
I still wish the Whitecaps had kept him on, but he went to better things as well. So
yeah, and I think when you have the ability to know when a player's journey has ended with you and when you can pick up another player that syncs up with that, that's something that only really great coaches do. probably the most famous example is Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United. In the same way, he knew when a player's usefulness was done and when he needed a player in a specific position. And I think with Forge, this style of play that they do, they know how to break down any team pretty much that's in front of them. They have the quality. And every year, a new player steps up. We saw Tristan Borges and Kyle Becker really step up at the beginning. Tristan left for Leuven in Belgium. It didn't work out. He came back. And you would think that he would be the star player again. But no, it was players like Wubens Passius, David Chouanier, even at the back, Ashinori Johnson, who's a midfielder, playing as a center back and then going on to win Defender of the Year. It's having different players step up at different times that I think has really led Forge to put like such a vice grip on that trophy because of the quality that they have. And if one player isn't playing particularly well, they either get one player to come in that will, or another player that's already there to step up and take charge. And I mean, for me, when I was talking with my boss, because we would watch the games, no player has impressed us, I think, as much as Wubin Passius did last season.
He was outstanding.
He was incredible. He has that poacher's instinct.
Yeah,
He's
I mean,
really
it's not
good
even
with
just
his
the
feet.
goals, it's his movement and his positioning.
Exactly. The way that he just understands space
Mm-hmm.
and where to be
That's a great
at
way
the
to
right
describe
time.
it, actually, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of high quality strikers do. And I mean, it might be crazy to liken him to like Erling Haaland in Man City right now, but both sort of do the same thing, where they know where to make runs, which spaces to occupy, to anticipating where the service is coming from and where it's going. And I think that's what made Wubens Passius so deadly this season, or the past season, is that just instinct to know, that striker's instinct to know where the ball is going to drop and where he has to be to put the ball away. And I honestly think that if Passius has another season like this, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets called up by either by a European team or maybe a Canadian MLS team. Will look at, some teams need those strikers, looking at Toronto and Montreal right now and stuff like that.
Yeah, they need all the help they can get.
Exactly. And Wubens Passius and another striker that we'll talk about later when we talk about York United. Those are that's sort of what they're there for, to show that kind of quality when they're young, and then be able to go and develop and join other bigger teams. So I think Forge, what makes them so wonderful and what's so dominant is that they have these players that are so united, and even when new players come in, you can see them instantly integrate with the team and find their role, find their position, not just tactically their role, but like within the group their role, and be able to rely on each other to make sure that they can all produce the best football that they can as a unit, as a team, not even individually. And I think Bobby, the way that he's done that, I mean, he obviously learned so much with Sigma, with
Yeah.
the way that he brought that up from pretty much from the ground up. And you can see how important Sigma has been to even the Canadian national team, all of his players that have been through there. So he knows how to develop talent. He knows how to develop players. And that's why, when I think of CPL, one of the faces of the CPL for me is Bobby, because he has just etched himself into the history books of Canadian soccer. And yeah, I think that this season, it's going to be another tough season to try to pry the North Shield away from Forge, because it's a train that doesn't seem like it's stopping anytime soon.
I know. I mean, they very easily could have been 4 for 4. Just the way that things had worked out. I mean, without hyperbole, I think Bobby Smirniotis right now is the best Canadian football manager out there. Hands down. I don't think he's got a rival. how he hasn't been snapped up by a bigger club baffles me. And I'm sure he's been interviewed. Tommy Wheeldon Jr. told us he's had interviews for other jobs and stuff, or discussions at least. He, for me, encapsulates everything about this league. Because we're always talking about the players and development players. He's been a young Canadian coach that didn't get the opportunity. He's come in and he's shown what he can do, and he's still not getting the opportunity. I don't know what he needs to do. That said, he obviously loves his time at Forge, and he wants to stay there and he wants to win trophies with them. If he can get them into the Champions League and make a run to the Champions League, maybe even land a Canadian championship, I'm sure is a big dream for everyone with Forge as well. But I don't think there's much we can add to that, Zach. I think Philippe's summed up Forge pretty well there.
So you brought on a Forge lover, and Steve will be happy you brought on someone who quotes things about Man United.
Mm-hmm. And it's a Scottish man he's talking about, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's true. No, I think I appreciate all your perspective there, Felipe. Yeah, Forge is one of the fun narratives about this first phase of the CPL has been the battle between these two coaches who have spent significant amount of time in the development pyramid within Canadian football, in Tommy and Bobby, and just to see them their teams kind of rise and be at the top has been really like a testament to all that they've given to the game. And I can't remember if I talked to you about this, Michael, but I swear I must have had a dream or something. I thought he had gotten the Montreal job in the offseason or something, or maybe he was just rumored, or I don't know what it was.
Philippe and me were talking about this in one of our recent car journeys and stuff as well. That
Was he
Bobby doesn't
interviewed for
speak. Well, Bobby doesn't speak French.
Pourquoi
That we know of, anyway. And if that is a prerequisite for the Montreal job, it's going to rule him out. But, I mean, he is the kind of guy that they need in there. Like, if Lasada's coat is on a sugary peg, which it has to be, and, again, without derailing things, Kamal Miller, the one solid thing in their defence that's left. Just, let's just get rid of him as well now.
That means more Rudy Camacho.
It's just baffling what's going on there. We really have to get Eve on the show soon again and talk to her about all of this. But like Bobby's a guy that could go in there and do such a good job. If Vanny was to move on from here, I would take Bobby in a heartbeat. No questions asked. Bring him in. Wouldn't even worry that he's not coached at this level. What he could do at a club like Vancouver would be tremendous. I would have. I thought he was in the running for Toronto before Bradley got it. But obviously, maybe not a sexy signing for them, the big name that they needed. That hasn't worked out that well, has it? So maybe...
You could see him coming in after Bradley.
Yeah, I definitely could now. But then it's like, if they still want to go down the big player route, it's that thing, does the big player appreciate or respect a manager that's maybe not played the game at the higher level? And that's all for another discussion. So... Let's get on to one of these other pesky Ontario teams. York United. Martin Nash, friend of the show, back in charge for another season. Wasn't a great 2022 campaign, it has to be said, for York. Finished 6th in the table on 34 points, 9 wins, 7 draws, 12 defeats, 31 goals for, 37 against. Leading the way was young Dero with 12 goals. Give the Whitecaps a little bit of a scare in the Canadian Championship. They've had another massive turnover as well of players, and they haven't brought in as many as they've let go. And you look at some of the players that have left, and it's big guys. It's like Dominic Zator, big player for them. Oliver Minitel, another guy. Isaiah Johnston, Noah Verhoeven, William Wallace, not the guy from Braveheart, but I mean, surely that's a big loss. Mamadou Kane, Tobias Wachowski. I mean, these guys have all moved on, but they have brought in some key guys. Elijah Adekugbe, we're big fans of him. Jeremy Gagnon-Lapare, I always worded that name, I'm really sorry. Matthew Baldissimo made his loan move permanent. Brian Wright, I mean, he did well for Halifax, so that they've brought him in. How you feeling?
Does Marty call him the perfect player?
Maybe. Brian, right. What you expecting from York, Zach?
I actually, when you look at their projected starting 11, it's just not that bad.
No, but
I
again,
think,
my worries with depth with them, much like Cavalry. I think they've got a
yeah,
good starting
I
11.
think the whole league depth is an issue, but I think Marty's got some really strong pieces. I'm really excited for him. I think they could do some damage and make a big impression this year. But you're right; it will depend on, can they keep everyone healthy? Can Di Rosario continue to progress? Can they hold on to him for the whole year?
Yeah,
these kinds of things.
I mean, Diro's season last year, Felipe, was absolutely outstanding, but he did have a bit of a lull in it as well. It wasn't like consistent, but all young players are going to go through peaks and troughs. But do you like what moves they've made?
Yeah, I mean, it's like with a big turnaround like that, it's hard to be able to get a proper idea of how every piece is going to fit in the puzzle. But I think some of the additions that they've made are really good, especially in the midfield. You know, Elijah Adekugbe, like you said, Gagnon Lapare, and making Baldismo permanent. And I think having that foundation in the midfield is going to be really important because they do have quality up front. I mean, Mo Babuli and Ozaze de Rosario, those are probably two of the most exciting and deadly strikers in the league right now. So having that as your attacking duo is is always going to help you in the long run. But it's seeing how, now they have I think an established midfield. How are they going to replace like a player like Dominic Zator?
Yeah.
Because he was super important for them at the back line and one of the best center backs, in the league last season.
I was amazed they landed him in the first place and that he decided to leave Cavalry. But money and stuff obviously plays a part. But yeah, that's a huge loss for them.
Yeah,
I don't know who that man is that's going to be the guy that steps up for them.
Exactly. I don't know really either. And you see Zator now, he's killing it over in the Polish league right now. He's doing really, really well, and he got a call up the men's national team. So those are huge shoes to fill. So I think for York, it'll be about not necessarily they'll score goals. I think De Rosario, he's a quality player. What I like is he's a very different kind of player than Wubens Passius in the way that they play. So they kind of get a different profile of the young upcoming striker. But they're going to be great scoring goals. Can they, shut up shop at the back and not leak too many? Because I feel like that's going to be probably one of their downfalls. I mean, they conceded 37 goals last season. They had a goal difference of -6 with Zator in the team. So how is it going to be without him? That's going to be probably the biggest question mark for me going into the season.
Yeah, it's.
I'm like you, Michael. I'm excited for Elijah. Like I don't know if you remember, Michael. I texted you. He told me about the move. I think it was after the Morocco game at the World Cup. And I'm just excited to see him in a new place. I think he's excited to be, in Toronto. I assume he's going to be in charge of the music in the locker room, if not performing it himself for the team. And I think he's going to love being in Toronto and being able to be a part of the culture in the city there and stuff. So I hope that invigorates him on the pitch, inspires him on the pitch. To even go to even bigger heights. But I think he is a type of player though who I think also can help with the departure of Zator. Obviously doesn't play the same position, but I think his presence as a 6, as a holding midfielder or like a player in front of the back four or the back line, he can play a significant role to help lessen the loss of someone like Zator.
Well, you look at the squad. And you look at the projected lineup on the CPL site, and they've got the 2 centre backs as Roger Thompson, so 31-year-old now, but very experienced, and the young Australian Tas Murdikutas. And you look at the rest of the roster and what their positions, and there's only one other potential centre back listed in there. So you do think surely they might have to add another centre back in there, and they might still be looking. but I don't know. What's your thoughts? Because obviously he was over in Germany, he's come back now, and he was mentioned in a lot of places before as a potential rising Canadian talent, and I might pronounce his surname terribly as well, but Theo Afework. Don't know if you know much about him from being over in Germany.
Yeah, where was he in Germany? I can't remember.
Nuremberg.
Yeah, but not with the first team, was he?
Under 19s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a good place to develop. Nuremberg is obviously Bayern's second biggest rival after 1860. So I don't really
I believe he had trials there.
Yeah. Oh, Michael. Oh, Michael. Oh, Michael. Philippe, I don't know if you're catching the Michael humor in there, but um yeah, no, that's good, but it's probably a better place for him to be is this CPL where you can play against men. And hopefully will help him to develop. But no, I didn't follow him much when he was over there.
So that's York. 2 teams to go. Atletico Ottawa. And Atletico Ottawa was a strange team for me. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about them. And I said this at the start for Vancouver FC. They just haven't really captured my attention. I hardly watched any of their games last year, despite the fact that they were top of the table. They topped the regular season standings, 13 wins, 10 draws, 5 defeats. 5 defeats over a season is incredible. 49 points, they topped it by 2 points. Joint third in goals and 36, second best in goals against. Ollie Bassett made the move there from Pacific, led the way with 8 goals, was outstanding for them, MVP in the league. Brian Wright and Balu Tabla with 7 apiece. Lost the final to Forge after beating Pacific in the semis. 14 players have moved on, including Wright and Tabla, which is 2 big losses for them. 6 players in and 3 loan deals. Can they do the same again, Felipe, or was that a kind of just a season for the ages for them?
Yeah, it's tough to kind of really understand whether it's just kind of it was an exception or if this is now the standard that they're going forward. Because of, I guess no one was really expecting them to do that well to finish first place. And so I think now, they had a lot of players leave, but they have added some, I think, really good quality players. The players that they brought in on loan, like Luke Singh and Jean-Anil Assi from Montreal. I think those are 2 exciting players to have in the CPL. You have players who have played in the CPL, like Noah Verhoeven and Gianni Dos Santos from Busan.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a huge signing
addition
for them. Exactly. So, I think, obviously they lost Balu Tabla, who did pretty well for them last season, amongst others. But I think they actually can. And I think the philosophy that they're going with, obviously brought in from Atletico Madrid, this kind of this influence from the big Spanish club, is going to help them to continue to grow. So I do think, and I mean, especially when you were backed by such a mega team, like a huge internationally renowned team, you're gonna have improvement. You're going to have progress, because as Atletico Madrid progresses, they're going to trickle that down to Atletico Ottawa. So I do think that the team's going to improve. I think this season, I don't know if we'll see first place again, just because of the way the other teams have strengthened, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're up there in first, second, and third. So I am excited, but to see what Ottawa bring now that they've kind of shown that that they can handle and they can hang with the big boys.
Well, I mean, up front, they look exciting because you've got Dos Santos, but you've also got Samuel Salter that hit 12 goals with Halifax last year. So that's a big addition as well. And defensively, Carol's we mate coming in as well, a guy with a lot of experience. What are you expecting from them, Zach?
I'm a little bit with you in terms of the capturing the imagination. I think it is the downside to what you were talking about, Felipe, is that they are like a part of the Atletico Madrid, multi-club kind of thing, which they have the approach, obviously, that you wear the club colors and you're all one in that sense. Which there's different approaches to the multi-club ownership thing. So yeah, I just have not really had an affinity for them because of that. Having said that, I'm really happy for the Bytown boys and the local supporters in Ottawa that they have a club after the debacle that was the Fury. So happy, and then happy for them to have such a great season. Great to see a guy like Ollie Bassett, as you said, Michael, kick on from his time at Pacific to develop and do even better. I think they can continue to be one of the top clubs in the league. Obviously, I hope they won't, but I think they have it in them to do that. And like you said, Felipe, they do, because of that backing. That helps them to be able to progress and to I think have other advantages that other clubs don't have. I think for me the biggest addition is Dos Santos. I think he can be a game changer in every game. Obviously, he wasn't quite that for Pacific. Like, it wasn't every game where he impacted it, but he had enough flashes, enough big moments that Ottawa was happy to bring him in, and so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him this year and how he either progresses or maybe regresses. But he's also just a nice guy. Got to meet a little bit through Pacific and kind of wish him well. And you're right, Michael. They have these kind of Canadian guys who are big in the kind of the Fury or Impact days, and Carl Wimet and the other name's escaping me now, who plays at the back for them. Who's the other old-time Canadian guy? Tissot, right? They have Tissot, right?
Oh, yeah, Maxime.
Maxime Tissot and Carl Wimet. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the capital. That's another one of those, like Winnipeg, or sorry, like Valour and like Forge. They play in those ginormous stadiums, and you just hope that one day that we can get to a place where they're more full. And obviously, we know in Ottawa they don't sell the one side with the cameras facing, so it makes it look worse than it is.
Oh, I know.
But for them, I hope their season goes well, except for when they're playing Vancouver FC.
Last of all, it's the new Forge. It's Halifax Wanderers. And I'm saying that because Forge obviously built on the success of Sigma. Is Halifax Wanderers going to get a resurrection built on the success of Vaughan? Because they've got their head coach, Patrice Geezer. And most folk will know him from his Vaughan days. I know him from Seneca Sting, head coach. And I commentated on his team in the CCAA Nationals this year, where he got sent off after the final whistle for abusing the referee after one of the worst refereeing performances I have seen in a long time. Still haven't talked to Patrice about that. I'm looking forward to that at some point.
I think you were talking about them as the new Forge because they're owned by the same people who own Forge.
Oh, no. I was just meaning it because it's like, is it going to be built on the success of another team? Now, they were 7th last year from 8 teams, just 8 wins to the name, 15 defeats. They were let down by having the lowest goals for, 24. Samuel Salter scored half of them, and he's moved on. What Patrice has done in building this team, though, it's going to be interesting, and it might take more than one season for this to fully kind of to start to come through. But I think the potential's there. He's an exciting young manager. You don't want to kind of automatically say, oh, he could be the new Bobby moving on from kind of a lower league into this. But he got rid of a lot of guys, and he wanted his own guys in, guys that he knew from his Vaughan days. So that, I mean, there were some key performers that moved on. Christian Oxner in goal, Peter Shala, who I've always loved Peter Shala, Gabe Escobar, who's now back with TSS Rovers, so at least there's a plus there. Marcello Polisi moved on, Akeem Garcia, Corey Bent, who I was a big fan of as well. So those guys have moved on. The guys that's come in, I can't say that I know much about them. There's Daniel Nemick, who the Whitecaps had drafted, and then didn't sign with the Whitecaps to has gone here. And then Theo Colom, who was with the Whitecaps 2 last year, and I was very impressed by him. I really liked him. We interviewed him on the podcast. So I'm curious to see what he does there. He's a guy that's always scored goals everywhere. And I think he could be exciting in the CPL. This could really kind of kickstart his pro career. But right now, no one really knows too much about what this team's going to be like. Let's start with Felipe.
Yeah, I mean, I think Halifax are probably one of the teams that I know the least about, just because they have always sort of been under the radar. They're not really the teams that you get super excited about. I think
they're everyone's second favorite team. Isn't that what they're marketed as?
I maybe. I think the most interesting part about it to fans is the fact of the away day, the whole together away days thing, because they have the longest away day.
Yeah,
I think in football, maybe second to a Russian team. But I was looking just before this at some of their signings and stuff like that, and it seems like maybe they're going through a route where they're trying to bring in more Canadian talent from like League One Ontario and from teams like the second team of Vancouver with Theo Colom, and they brought in a guy from Montreal and stuff like that. I think then they're trying to have that sort of basis of Canada while bringing in a few good internationals. I really am excited to see what Lorenzo Caligari brings, the Frenchman that they've gotten from Chambly. I think he's probably going to be maybe a hidden gem in the league as a midfielder.
Well, their big marketing for that is he played a match for PSG.
Yeah, exactly. And so I remember like, because I play a lot of like Football Manager and FIFA. I remember seeing it's like, oh, he's a young prospect there, and then forgetting about him like when that was like 5 years ago.
And who would have thought all these years later you're seeing him here?
Exactly. And so I think that maybe they can try to sneak into the top 5, but I think especially with this season bringing in a manager that has had a dynasty at Vaughan Azzurri, and now Patrice has come to Halifax. They're going to probably give him some time. They're going to give him some time to adjust,
yeah, definitely.
Instill his philosophy, instill the way he wants to play. This is not a win now move. I think they're thinking more on the long term, and I think that this season they might just be like, go and play as best as you can, achieve the best result if you can. If you make the playoffs, great. If you don't, that's okay. It's just about, we're trying to see some progress, and we're trying to see what you can bring to this Halifax team that really hasn't done all that much in the CPL yet.
I think they want some excitement, Zach, for that great fan base. It's still one of the places and stadiums I have to get to at some point. And I've spoken in the podcast before, I was meant to, but then we had to cancel our trip because my wife wasn't well. So hopefully I will get there one day. But the fans need it. They need at least some excitement, some hope. And like, 2 players I'm really excited to see how they do this year. Christian Campagna, who'd been with the Whitecaps, very high on him. Really think he should have got a Whitecaps MLS deal, but he's going to the CPL. He's going to be playing regularly there, so it makes sense, and the Whitecaps can always bring him back. But they've also got this potential wild card. He was the League One Ontario MVP, Massimo Ferrin. I don't know much about him, but there's a lot of buzz about him, and it's just, you don't know how these guys do at the next level. But hopefully they can give the fans something to, at least, even if they don't make the playoffs, feel confident about for going into 24.
Yeah, I have a buddy who moved out there and has been a part of the supporter culture and just loving it. And obviously there's people know from over there, like James Covey and a few others. But they have the I think most envied kind of setup to this point in the league, for the kind of close, intimate stadium and passionate group of supporters who are there, win or lose. And like you said, they have a long away days, but they are like a very much a favorite away day. I'm trying to get there to the August 12th match for Vancouver FC. I don't know if that's going to, I think it's August 12th, August something or other. I don't know if it's going to come off the way I hope, but.
Well, there's the bus that's going.
Like, oh my. But no, yeah, I also, yeah, it's interesting. It is totally turning a new page for them, and it'll be interesting to see what this chapter brings for them. Will it pay off the way that they hope? They have some great people who run the club. Obviously, the money comes from Hamilton, but they have, I think, quality operators on the ground there, and it'll be interesting to see what this new era brings for them.
Most definitely. And you've got the exciting potential. The feelers have been put out for Atlantic League One, which will then hopefully get a conveyor belt of young talent coming through for the team in the future as well. So we hope to get Dino Rossi in the show soon just to chat about all of that and the whole League One system. But it was a lot. We've got through it. We've covered all the teams. It's not it, though, for the show. We're going to be back with our big feature interview for the show next, as we sit down for a chat with Valour FC head coach Phil Dos Santos. We'll be back with that after this.
Hi, I'm Ollie Bassett, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
It's a heartwarming song for the easily moved. The effect is all wrong, plain to see I'm not moved. As I stand in the light of a shop that is closed, God, I'd love me a fight. There's no poem, just prose. Edith Piaf said it better than me. Je ne regrette rien. Pretty song, but not intended for me. Time to put some music on. There were no smoky dives, fewer moves, fewer not. There were no petty crimes, foreign substances bought. There were no midnight drives with a crying boss's wife. Need a sentence at most, innocence in my life. Edith Piaf said it better than me. Je ne regrette rien.
Welcome back to the final part of what has been another bumper episode of There's Still Time, the AFTN Soccer Show. And kicking off this final part, it's another song from our Artist of the Month here at AFTN for the month of April, the legendary American Brothers Sparks. That is a song taken from their 2017 album, Hippopotamus, their 24th studio album. That was Edith Piaf, Said It Better Than Me. So yes, this is our final part of our CPL Kickoff special. The Canadian Premier League goes into year 5. We've looked over all the teams. In a future episode, we're going to delve into having a look around the kits as well. You can read Felipe's article on aftn.ca about that. But we want to kind of see them in the flesh on the pitches and kind of see how they look in person before we kind of do a deep dive into our thoughts on those. But we've got one last thing to bring you in this part, and that is our feature interview for this episode. And it's with a man we know very well here at AFTN, Valour FC head coach Philip Dos Santos. The former Whitecaps assistant coach took over in Valour towards the tail end of the 2021 season, replacing Rob Gale. He's had a season and a bit in charge of the team, 2 5th-placed finishes for Valour in that time as well. About to go into his second full season in Winnipeg and looking to take that next step for the club and get them their first ever playoff place. But he's not targeting another 5th place finish to do that. He wants to finish higher and as high as possible. So go stick the kettle on, grab your biscuit of choice, sit back and enjoy our chat with Philip Dos Santos talking all things CPL, and of course, looking forward to that big Canadian Championship game against TSS Rovers next Wednesday at Swangard Stadium. Here's PDS. So thank you, it's always, Phil, for joining us on the show. You're looking good. How are you looking forward to the new season that's about to get underway at the weekend?
Very much. It's too long of an off season. I think that it's now 5 months. It's a long off season, so we've been working now for about 7 weeks. This is going to be our 8th week, so we're anxious now to start. We want to start. We want to get going. I think this is why we train for. So we're excited that the season is finally around the corner.
It's going to be your second full season in charge of the team. How are you feeling about this team and this squad going into this year?
Michael, on paper, we're always very optimistic. I think that there's not one coach that's looking at its roster and how it was built where we're not confident that or is not confident that we'll be up there and fighting with the best teams in the league. I have to look at it the same way. I think that, we've fallen short for 2 seasons now, and it's 4 full seasons for the club. And it's important for us to try and put ourselves in a position where we start accumulating points right from the beginning. But I think that the way to go about it is it's going one game at a time. It's trying to win your next game. I look at our roster, and I'm happy with what we've built so far. I think that we've addressed many deficiencies that we had as a team, as a roster. I think that our depth is better. Of course, we can't neglect the personnel that has left the club, players that we tried to keep, but at the same time, it's a competitive market out there. And you look at teams in the USL already looking at the CPL, and I talk about a Brett Levi's, a player like Moses Dyer, others that are out of our control, the loans that we had, but that's an affair of the past. Now we looked at what those players brought, but how can we get better as a team? Because even though those players gave a lot to the club, we still fell short. So we needed to upgrade not only for the positions that left, but make sure that across the board we were better. We were better as a club. We were better as a team. If you ask me, do you believe you did that? Looking at the first 7 weeks, I think we did. I'm confident we did. But the reality is that we'll only know once the real competition starts, and we'll have good indicators in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's a very long, grueling season as well, with a lot of travel, which I guess for you guys being so central, it's not as bad as for some of the other teams. But I mean, it obviously does start to take its toll. And touched on a few things there that we'll talk about. Just a very quick look back at last year, because I don't like to dwell too much in the past, as you know, and I know you're kind of the same. So after 2021, just agonisingly missing out, the top 4 last year seemed to pull themselves away a little bit, but you still had a really good season. You had a couple of standout performances. Your leading scorer, Moses Dyer, with 9 goals. Sean Rea, on coming in from Montreal, had a great season as well, led the league in assists. Under 21 Player of the Year. That is 2 big pieces that have moved on.
Yeah.
How do you replace such quality and team leaders?
We have to replace it with the collective. We're talking. I hear a lot of people talking about the offensive pieces that left and their offensive contribution. But at the end of the day, we're looking at everything right now, and we're preparing for the upcoming week, and we were still a team that was at the bottom when it came to not expected goals, but actually goals scored per game. Mm-hmm. And yes, there was offensive contribution from a couple players, but we needed so much more. So we don't see it as having to replace one player with another. Example, Dyer gave us 9 goals. We need to go and get someone who gives us at least 9. I don't see it like that. I see it as a collective. Can we go and get a player that's going to give us consistency and that will give us his share of goals, but also make everyone around him better, allow others to contribute. I think that the game is the sum of the parts. So we're looking at it like that, and that's how we address the offseason. And I really want to focus on the collective. Yes, I like the individuals that we have. There's a lot of quality. I have no doubt that there's names that people don't speak about because they don't know about. But I could tell you already after 7 weeks that there's good quality in the roster. There's players that will contribute offensively. And again, it's the sum of the parts. So today I'm not concerned. I don't look at the past. I look at what we have now and maximizing the potential that we have today on the squad.
Aside from the guys that you lost in terms of contributions and goals and assists, you also lost a leader in Daryl Fordyce who's retired. How do you fill those shoes? Because he has been such a good servant to the team and in the league.
I didn't lose Daryl because he's in the locker room.
Oh, true, yeah.
With the staff, he won't be on the field, but he's going to be on the sideline. His voice will still be there. And, looking at him going as a coach, I think he's going to have a brilliant career. I think that he's somehow even surprised me on his immediate contribution to what the team could be about. But I think that we don't replace an individual because it's hard to replace the person that Daryl is on the field. But I think that collectively we were able to bring in more guys that had league experience, that have had won in the league, that have a strong character and strong voices. I give you an example of a player like Abdou Samake, who if you spend time with him, you don't need to wear a captain armband or to be pointed out as being a leader to know that he's a natural one. He's a guy that has an influence in the locker room. Guys like Marcello, Jordan. I look at the overall. I look at a player like even a player like Pianelli, who was a youth sport player, but is now 24 years old, if I'm not mistaken, and has lived and experienced football with Bastia in France. So he brings his share of personality and leadership. So, the return of a guy like Rafoui being on the field with the team. So there's a lot, Anthony Novak. So there's a lot of good personalities that when it counts, they will be able to fill shoes that were left by other players that left for other adventures or other clubs. So again, I look at it collectively, and that was our approach in the off season.
The nature of this league is that there's always big turnovers on pretty much most of the teams from season to season. That's just how it is. I think I've got it down that 16 players moved out. You've had 14 come in, as well as your 2 kind of draft picks. Looking at some of the experience that you brought in, you touched on a little bit there, like Jordan Haynes, a guy I've known for many years from his time here in Vancouver, coming in from Pacific, Samaki as well, Marcello Polisi, another guy I know well, coming in from Halifax, and Anthony Novak. That's some very key guys that you've brought in that know this league and know the rigours of it and the travel and all the aspects of it.
Yeah, that's important. That was part of our recruitment process. You touched about, we're like that. Players will do well here and move on. And we have to face it. And that's part of the challenge we are, but it's also, it allows us to grow as a team. I look at, the control we have on the contracts for 2024 is so big. So many of these signings we've made will be in a position for us to decide on. Some have 2 years guarantees, some have an option. But we know that, whoever's going to be good for us will move on, and we have that reputation as a club, and that's fine too. We need to just be ahead of the game. We need to know that player A, B, or C. If they do very well with us, it could be, and chances are that they will move on. And now the challenge is who's the next one in line, and that puts us in a situation where our scouting, our recruitment, how attentive we are to certain players that in their current environment might not be. I'll give you an example of a player like Marcello Polizzi, who was playing always in Halifax as an outside midfielder or a number 8, being in the outside of the 3. And Marcello, for us, we see him more as a number 6, an holding midfielder. And Marcello, when we looked at him, we weren't looking at him and seeing, but he didn't play every game. Sometimes it was Pierre. We looked at him saying, he has the profile of the number 6 we want for this club. And that's how I look at it. Sometimes a player is good. Example, Ollie Bassett wasn't playing every game with Pacific. He was the MVP in Ottawa. So we need to be ahead of the game when we're talking about those type of players that are looking for something else, something that is more. And when I speak with the players, I always talk to them about where I see them play and what their role is going to be inside our collective. So that's part of our challenge, but it's also, it stretches you to be ahead of the ball, ahead of the game. I had my VP of finance and operation here, and he was hearing and listening us talk about contracts and how things could look, and already projecting not even 2024, but even looking and eyeing 2025. So I'm here to work for the club and for the longevity of the club. So I have to make sure that either it's me in this position or someone else, there's something left behind, something where, there's homework that's been done. There's something that has been put in place for the club to continue to thrive and succeed. So that's our job. And I think these departures, they're going to happen and keep happening. So we have to be ahead of the game there.
I mean, it's interesting you hear him talking about Marcello, because like when he was here with the Whitecaps Academy, he was a 6. When he played at SFU, he was a 6. And then when he made the move to Halifax, I was a bit baffled by where they had him playing. So I think that is a good addition. And chatting to Marcello when you were back here for the friendly with Vancouver, he's loving life so far with Valour. But talking about your recruitment, you look to have cast the net far and wide, because the players that you've brought in from playing in 8 different countries. So talk a little bit about your recruitment without giving too many secrets away. Like, have you just wanted to look as far as possible, or target maybe some markets that maybe haven't been looked at by other CPL teams?
Both. I think that it's not easy to recruit the best Canadian players, especially when it comes to, there's some positions that are easier than others. I'll give you an example of, your front line. It's hard for us to go out and see who's the best CPL player. Ottawa did it. They did it with Salter. They looked at a profile that was good for them, and they just made a financial effort that it counts in the cap. So if I go out and I say I want player X from another team, it's going to count against my cap if I have to pay a fee for him. So for us, offensive talent is hard. It's hard. The best attacking pieces, the ones that could make the difference, will be taken by other teams. And if you are able to get them, it's because you're in a moment where they're out of contract. It's probably because we're having to pay a large fee or a larger salary than we would for any other player, and maybe end up overpaying the player. And again, I don't like to say overpaying, because you're worth what your value is. And if someone is willing to give 100 or 150 for a CPL player in current cap conditions, it's because the player is worth that. So when I say that, I'm talking always Valour's perspective. So I think it's hard. So you need to go outside and try and find that somewhere else, and we opted to do it in the international market, and that's where we got a player like Pacific, a player like Keon Williams, even a Jaime Siage. That's what we looked at. We look at potential Canadians that are maybe abroad. I'll give you the example of Yare Duloa, who had just won in the second division of Peru, and had been here on loan from Alianza in 2021. Yared is a player that I coached for 10 games, and I really liked him. So I tried to bring him back last year on loan. It wasn't possible, so we were able to get him now that his contract was up. So we're attentive to everything. And, there's a plan, 100%. We look at the plan, and we're there, and we're on the board all off season. But sometimes there's a name that pops out that you just need to have enough courage and belief in the signs that you've seen through video and scouting and phone calls and discussions, and you just have to follow what your gut tells you, and be bold to take the risk on someone who might need to arrive and adapt and live a very different reality than his, like it's the case of Pacific, who was in Australia and now finds himself in Canada. So the strategy is the strategy. Every club has their own. We approach things very differently this year than we did the year before because of the nature of how our contracts were. And it was clear in our mind what we believed this team needed to succeed. So we stick to the plan, and we were open to the wild cards, and that's how we went about it.
You mentioned Pacific there. I was going to talk about him a little bit because it was a name I remembered because I watched a lot of A-League because it's free on YouTube, and I'm up late at night. So I've watched those games for the last couple of years. So I remember him and the name from Perth Glory. I mean, getting a guy like that over, from reading some of the message board comments from Valour fans that have seen that, and they were at the inter-squad game and stuff, they're very excited by what he can bring to this team.
Yeah, so are we. He's, he scored basically in every, or contributed for a goal in every single preseason match we did. But I told them that there's no goal or assist bonuses in preseason matches. So now he needs to go out and do it when it really counts. So we're very optimistic, but we also manage expectations. I know that fan base and media, a player has a good game and suddenly he's put up there on a pedestal. And I want everyone to understand that Pacific's still going to need his time. He's a player that's going to be probably going with the national team of Burundi sometime in June. So, there's an accumulation of matches. There's fatigue with flights. There's so many things that we have to take in consideration. So very good player. I love his attitude, his character, his ability to work on both sides of the balls or of the ball and of the game. But also the fact that he attacks in many, many different ways. He attacks, he's unpredictable. So I like that in him. Now let's go. Let's bring it into real life, because now there's 3 points on the line, and this is when it counts.
Last few things, and I'm going to preface this for anyone from Winnipeg that's listening by, I'm not meaning this disrespectful to the people of Winnipeg, but when you look at the destinations for players to come to in the CPL, have you found Valour a hard sell because maybe Winnipeg's not a place that's that well known outside of Canada, and it's maybe not a first choice place for players to come to?
More with the Canadian player than the player from abroad. Because the player from abroad doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
A city in Canada is a city in Canada. We send them the city highlight video, and it looks great, and it is great. And when you start understanding the place, and you are here and you start building a life like I did here with my family, with my kids, and uh, coming to work is great. I would challenge any CPL club in what we could offer the players on a day-to-day basis here when they are in the facility, and knowing the hot spots in the city and understanding the city. There's one thing, there's the winter. The winter is tough. Those 2 months when players arrive until the season kicks in. Now we were outside on our field today, and we're starting to train outside. That changes everything. That changes your mood. That changes your morning. Just being able to come out and just leave your house with a hoodie or a t-shirt, for me, it changes my life. So, of course, when you survive the rough of the winter, which is not necessarily better in a place like Montreal, which I've lived many years, it's still okay. 5-10 after 20 degrees negative. Once it reached -15 or -20, it's all the same thing. So that's the only one. That's the only tougher part. And of course, once the season starts, we're all caught up. It's for 6-7 months where we are between travels and being at the club and training. As long as families or players are happy, they could find a couple hot spots to go to, have a nice meal, and then be with their teammates and find a good place in club environment that is good. They'll be good. So my sell pitch is that you just have to survive the winter, a month and a half or two, and after that it's roses. So with the international player, it's easier than the domestic, because the domestic knows, right? Vancouver, it's a sexy city. Toronto is a sexy city. It's just the reality of things.
That's something, like, from chatting with you and seeing your posts on social media, from the minute you went there, you embraced the city and you embraced it, the culture and the lifestyle, and you seem to have loved it there.
There's no other way, Michael. I believe that your heart and your soul needs to be where you're at in the moment, because if not, you miss out on the good parts that either the job or the place has to offer. That's the way I want to live my life, because if not, you wake up, you're frustrated, you're complaining, you don't bring your best to the table. And that's how I want my kids to also see me. I want them to see me. Yes, sometimes you wake up and another -20, but you go about it well, and you just try to enjoy it as much as you can. I remember I lived in pretty good cities, Michael. I've been blessed with, from San Francisco, Fort Lauderdale, the Vancouver, Montreal. The one I still speak the most about when I look at the past with my wife and my kids is Indianapolis. And that's a city that people were telling me, but what are you going to go and do there? So it's all about the memories, the people you're around, the way the club treats you. So that's what my experience has brought me to, and where I want to be. I want to live the moment so I could enjoy the moment.
Yeah. The team this year, if I've read this right, you don't have any loan deals at the moment anyway. Was that a deliberate plan by you, looking ahead for like a 2-year plan so you're not going to lose guys? Or was it just that MLS teams maybe are looking at how they deal with things differently, because now there's obviously MLS Next Pro?
A bit of both. I think that there is that component with the MLS Next Pro. I think you still have a few clubs there's one or another player that is a first team signing that has played against, for example, I'll give you the example of Singh in Ottawa. He's played in the CPL. CPL today is more adult than the MLS Next. It's more of a men's league. I think that for certain players, it's going to suit them more and suit their growth a bit more. But it was a bit. I always keep 1 or 2 roster spots for later, and these MLS loans, they will arrive late in the game because of the preseason, and so I want to see those as a Christmas present if they happen, and it's a position of need, and I really think that the player's going to come in and have a fair chance. Then I'll look into it. If it's just for depth, I think that the player is better off in the environment he's in, because It's not true that you come from an MLS club and you're a young player and you're in your first or second year pro, and suddenly you go to a CPL team and you start every game. It's not true. So we really have to make sure that those loans are good for the player, but also good for us. So this year it didn't happen. We were open to it. We tried one, but the player wasn't interested. And it was from one of the clubs that has an MLS Next pro team, but he was falling in that category where now he's been there, he's done it, and what's the next level? The next level. Sometimes it's play a full, like Jose Roy, play a full 1-2 CPL seasons, dominate, and then you show that you're ready for MLS. It didn't happen, and so we moved on. That's where we're at now.
I asked you this when we chatted last year, when you'd had a few months under your belt, so roughly a year and a half now as a head coach. What have you learned about yourself as a coach, and do you feel that your coaching style's changed over that time to where you are now?
Yeah, more patient, less for me, more for the team. I think that too often as coaches, we have ideas that are ours, and we neglect the reality is that we're coaching for the players. We're coaching for the players to understand. So you need to understand football in its different forms. You need to understand the football that you want to implement, but it needs to be one that will maximize the qualities of the individuals inside the collective. I think that, you learn that details are very important, but you won't control everything, and you need to let go of certain elements so that you could be very strong in the ones that you're prioritizing and channel your energy in the right way. And I reinforce my position that you need to be 100% honest and coherent, not only with yourself, but with your approach and the way you manage the individuals and the players. That, for me, it's no doubt a key to success. And when I say reinforce, it's because it's something that I came to understand very early in my career. When the player sees that sometimes you're on the left, sometimes you're on the right, and it's not coherent, you start losing credibility, and you start losing strength as a manager. I think that they all know you have your ideas. There's non-negotiables. There's things that you open up for debate and discussions. But at the end of the day, it's not a one-man show. We need the team to abide by your principles and believe in them. So it's up to us to try and bring that to them in a way that they're going to be convinced it's for the best of the team. And that's the way I try to handle myself every day. And you don't have to be the police officer. You need to just understand these guys are young men and treat them as such. And that's what I try to do.
So, looking ahead then to the season to come, what are you expecting from the league this year and some of the other teams, and the fact now that there is this extra playoff spot, which if it had existed, obviously, for the last 2 years, you'd have been a playoff team. But, I mean, how are you expecting the league this year? Are you expecting a lot more parity?
I think there will be. I think that the league's going to be extremely competitive. I know there's that fifth spot. That's a spot I don't want to be in. I don't. For a simple reason. One, I don't want to be labeled as that team that's always flirting with that fifth spot, number one. But more than that, because it's not about that. I think that our fans deserve a home playoff game over here. And I think that if you finish, you go in and you get in as that wild card team, you won't host a playoff game. So for our fans, I want us to be be always thriving for more, looking ahead, wanting more than just to barely make it. I want us to be more ambitious than that. So yes, there's going to be parity. Yes, there's going to be competitiveness every game. It's going to be extremely tight, but I still believe, and I want us to have the ambition that every game is a game to win. And if we do that, if we approach things like that, and if we're able to get to our magic number, the one that as a team we've set as objectives, we will be ahead of that 5th spot, and we'll be able to offer our fans a playoff match for the first time.
That's fantastic. Last thing to ask you, Canadian Championship game is coming up on the 19th. It'll be your second game of the season, TSS Rovers' first game of the year, first competitive game. Now, you've been involved in this, obviously here with the Whitecaps. You've been involved in it last year with Valour. You've been on both sides of it, where you're going in as the favourites, where you've gone in as the underdogs. What are you expecting from this game? You know you're going to be playing a team that's really up for it and hungry, and with players that's going to be out there just to try and impress and get into the CPL.
I expect a fight. We haven't spoken about that game because I think the next one is York. So I don't want us to start having our heads in the next 2, 3, 4 games. As coaches, yes, we plan things and we know that there's a pattern. It's a big week and we need to manage loads, and there's things that we're going to need to do to make sure that we fill in the best team for the different games. But we expect a fight. We know it's going to be very difficult. We know that we'll play a team that has nothing to lose. I hate being in that situation because I've been in it a couple times, and it's one of those that you don't like as a manager. And then there's the whole factor that you don't get much about these teams. You don't get to see what type of identity they have, what type of dynamics they play with. And yes, there's games of last year, but you're so far from the reality when you're looking at previous year footage. And so, yeah, we expect a fight. One thing I could tell you already is that we are preparing it like a league game, like a final, a playoff game. Any player that I feel throughout the process that shows a little sign of being overconfident and maybe slacking a little bit leading to that game, I guarantee you won't be on the field. So for us, it's that important. I look at the path to what this Canadian Championship looks like, and again, like the same way I said, I would love to bring a playoff game to IG Field. I would also love to bring a Canadian Championship game to IG Field. So for that, we need to start by winning the first one, and we're very aware of the challenges we're going to have against TSS Rovers.
Yeah, it's an interesting half of the draw that you guys are in, and I wish you well for it. I've been involved with TSS since they started in 2017, so obviously I'm rooting for them to get the job done. If you get through, I'll be delighted for you though as well. So thank you so much for your time. You've always been very generous with us with your time, Phil.
My pleasure.
I look forward to seeing you next week when you come here, and good luck in that opener against York on Saturday.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.
So some great stuff there from Phil Dos Santos. Wish him all the very best, and some exciting times in Valour. Hopefully they can get themselves into the playoffs, and I think everyone associated with the club would love that. So that is pretty much it for our bumper episode. But of course, no matter whether we've been recording for 10 hours or not, I'm still going to bring you this episode's wavelength, and that's what I'm doing. We're going back to 2021, a band we've featured a lot, Armchair Loyal, out of Birmingham in England, and we've been working our way through their football-themed album, and this is a song called Fun Facts About Footballers. We all have a bit of that.
As a child, Paulins had a Wendy house. Clayton Blackmore owned one of the first ever sit-down showers. Glenn Hoddle was original choice to voice the Wombles. Colton Palmer can milk a gold blindfolded. When at Nottingham Forest for good luck, Teddy Sheringham always warmed up with a dead mouse in his training top. Frank McAvenny claims to have invented the CU Jimmy wig. Tony Woodcock was original choice to play Doyle in the professionals. Sweepers, wingers, fullbacks. Come to us. We have fun facts. Goalies, strikers, central defenders. We have fun facts with all their splendours. Sweepers, wingers, fullbacks. Come to us. We have fun facts. Goalies, strikers, central defenders. We have fun facts with all their splendours. Garth Crooks invented toilet duck. Dennis Wise still believes in unicorns. Trevor Brookin played keyboards in level 42. Gary Mabbott claims to have discovered the seagull. Warren Barton has a little tattoo. Effena Cuckoo makes tea with tomato soup. Sweepers, wingers, fullbacks. Come to us. We have fun facts. Goalies, strikers, central defenders. We have fun facts with all their splendours. Sweepers, wingers, fullbacks. Come to us. We have fun facts. Goalies, strikers, central defenders. We have fun facts with all their splendours. Laurie Sanchez was the first man in Britain to ever receive spam email. Barry Horn was founding member of the Wu-Tang Clan. Tony DeRigo is Banksy. Brian Talbot was nowhere to be seen in the opening sequence of Saving Private Ryan. And Ricky Otto has initialed every piece of Lego he has ever owned. Eddie Nedvesky never goes for a swim after eating. Mal Donaghy was the first to use the phrase, "You don't have to be mad to work here, but it helps." Georgie Kinkladze knits his socks with double-pointed needles. Trevor Morley wrote several episodes of ITV's ill-fated soap, Albion Market.
At Grimsby, it's Haddock taking over the terracing.
Jan Molby once missed 6 games for Liverpool after mistaking a spaceship for his Austin Allegro and ending up on an intergalactic adventure. Sweepers, wingers, fullbacks. Come to us. We have fun facts. Goalies, strikers, central defenders. We have fun facts with all their splendours. Sweepers, wingers, fullbacks. Come to us. We have fun facts.
Armchair Loyal, fun facts about footballers. Not sure how many of them were true. Well, actually I do. None of them were true. I don't think that particular player invented seagulls or discovered seagulls. But that's the kind of fun facts that we bring you on this show. A good fun way to end this episode. It's been a bumper one. We're all looking forward to the CPL season. We'll wrap things up now. Felipe, your first show with us. It only lasted 12 hours. How did you enjoy it? Do you have any final thoughts? And where can people find you and find your work online?
No, it was a lot of fun. I always love going and ranting about soccer, so it's nice that I can have a little bit of an outlet for that. And I could do it for 2, 3, 4 hours. And as always, I mean, I've been listening to the show ever since I started getting into soccer here, so it's amazing to be on. And it's a little bit. I remember at the beginning meeting you, Michael, and stuff like that. I was trying not to be too bashful, because I really look up to this show and what you've done. Actually,
thank you. That's lovely.
I was freaking out a little bit earlier because I mentioned that I was playing Football Manager.
Yeah.
And there's a big Canadian mega patch update that somebody did. And one really cool thing is that not only did they bring in the CPL teams and League One Ontario, League One BC, even League One Alberta into the Football Manager so you could play with those teams, but they brought in all the media as well. So a lot of people in there. Yeah. A lot of people in there are people that I've met, like Alex Gonge-Ruzik is in there, Emmanuel Veff from Transfer Market, and I found out today you two are on there actually as well.
It's actually not allowed to media pass anywhere. He's banned.
Yeah, but he's there. It was crazy when Zach was asking me questions, because I was the Vancouver FC coach, and he was asking me questions and said AFTN. I'm like, wow, you guys made it.
But of course, if you've become the coach, then you're not a writer, so we've had to get Zach in instead. So that makes total sense
there you
now.
go.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I another moment where I kind of was super just blown away. But yeah, no, I always enjoy talking soccer. So thank you for the opportunity, and I hope I come back.
Yeah, we've loved having you on. We'll definitely have you on more often. And Zach, Felipe said he could go 3 or 4 hours. I've said that to Caitlin before, and it's never quite worked out that way. But I mean, you must be excited for this season coming up.
I am, but hang on. Felipe, did you say Michael and I are a Football Manager?
Yeah.
I have a photo if you want. Where I can show you.
Our names, our pictures?
Your names are on. No,
Better
not
be pictures.
Okay. But your name.
This is why we do a podcast.
Yeah, hold on. Let me see if I can focus. But up here, that says Z Meisenhauer.
Oh, right. So it does.
Michael, you know
AFTN and the AFTN logo is there.
Michael,
saying,
Michael, you know what you need to do. That's all I'm going to say, Michael.
I will send it.
Yeah, just
I will explain to Felipe what we're talking about.
Just as a joke, Michael, you need to do it. No, Felipe, it's been great to have you. It's great to meet you a couple weeks ago. I can't remember if it was the TSS or Valour game. I think it was TSS.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's great to have you. Michael's spoken very highly of you and your writing. He only brings in people who he thinks are good. So know that he thinks you're good.
Yeah, that's why Steve's not on anymore. No, I joke.
Wow.
Yeah, that is a joke. But no, Michael, you're right. I'm very excited. So people are hopefully listening to this on Thursday or Friday, or maybe even Saturday morning. If you find yourself in Langford, headed to Starlight Stadium or in Starlight Stadium, and you want to passionately support Vancouver FC, I invite you and encourage you to come to Section 113. We will make space for you. And we're looking forward to having just a great inaugural match and having a lot of fun together as this part of the journey begins. It's been a long 6 years or whatever.
Yeah,
so it's nice to have a new chapter start and it to be the stuff that I'm most passionate about. So yeah, really looking forward to that, and excited for the beginning of year 5 of the CPL, and obviously the year that will and I think I'll most be invested in compared to the other 4. And fvfanatics@gmail.com if you want to be a part of what's going on there. You can find us on socials as well. And this has been a good time.
Yeah, and I know it's been a long journey for you to get to the stage and have the team and the support. And what I would say, if you do turn up, Zach will hand you a flag. I got handed one at the Valour game, and then I couldn't see the match because I was waving it in front of my face, and I was disappointed with myself. But it's, for me, there's nothing more exciting than the start of a new season. It's like I always get excited by it because everyone or mostly, everyone's full of hope and expectations, and this just, you've got a whole season to look forward to. Having a team in the Lower Mainland is great. For me, there can't be enough football to get out to. I think the times or amount of hours in the day is now proving a problem, or maybe proving alternative to that fact, but it's great to have all this. Please get out, wherever you're listening to this podcast in Canada, get out and support your local team if you can this weekend, if they're at home. If they're not, go and support them next weekend if they're at home. We need this league to succeed. We need this league to produce the next crop of young talent. The pathway from the League One into this league, this pathway from this league into wherever. It's a great league. It's going to be a great season. Thank you so much to Philippe for joining us. I've really enjoyed the stuff you've brought to AFTN so far. It's been a pleasure getting to know you this year. Zach, I hope you have a wonderful time at the weekend. If I don't make it over, we'll hear all about it in the next show. To everyone that's listened to this, thank you so much as well. And to everyone that spoke to us for this show and the future shows, thank you as well. We've maybe had to cut some stuff out because we have gone a little bit long. But we will be back with another show soon. Until then, thanks for listening. Take care. Enjoy the new season. And mon the CPL.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
10 minutes left. Yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name. That's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story. Let's take this thing off of the field into the real world, away from the numbers, away from the numbers.